Chapter 883. I wonder when I'll be able to go home. What Lu Feng wanted the most was to go home. This was because he was still worried about his family and friends in the primal universe. Not far away. It's really not far away. It might take thousands of years for many apex geniuses to reach the epic Overlord realm. But that's for them. For me, Lu Feng, it's really not far away. I'm already a pinnacle immortal. And I've stabilized my realm. I just need a suitable opportunity. I'll enter the realm of destruction. I'll become a great devil body of destruction. At that time, I'll quickly become a pinnacle true immortal or even a pinnacle heaven immortal. I believe it's really not far away, he exhaled softly. At that moment, Lu Feng's eyes flashed with determination. After dispelling the worries in his heart, Lu Feng returned to his usual calmness. Lu Feng wandered around Yellow Spring City for an entire day. One day later, the real competition began. Soon, Lu Feng returned to the competition venue. At that moment, there was an unprecedented number of people here. Countless monstrous geniuses and geniuses had already gathered here. Lu Feng knew that this was the real beginning of the final competition. After several battles, after countless losses and casualties, there were only slightly more than 1,000 geniuses and monsters left. This was enough for the unconventional battles before the final battle. Everyone, it's time. The remaining battles will be unconventional. This time, we've given up on the previous grouping. Instead, we've chosen a random combination. In this way, I believe everyone will be able to see the exciting and intense final battle. Unconventional battles meant that they would be evenly divided into certain groups and let these people fight in a free-for-all. In the end, only one person would be able to enter the final round. This time, 50 people were needed. In other words, the competition would be divided into 50 arenas. However, although there were still 50 arenas this time, the way the battles were fought was different. This was because the battle this time was going to be a random battle. In other words, he would create 50 arenas. Anyone could enter these 50 arenas, and once they entered, they would have to fight. In the end, the only one left would be the winner of this arena. It could be said that this arrangement seemed unfair, but it was the best way to show the true essence of battle. After all, in such an era, there was no such thing as absolute fairness. That immortal king named Lin Langtian quietly swept his gaze over. When he discovered that no one had any objections, he directly struck out a hand seal in the air. In the blink of an eye, 50 of the largest arenas had been formed and were completely wrapped up. All right, you can enter now. Those who are confident can enter first. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 100 people had already rushed into the arena. They were all people who had absolute confidence in themselves. Although those who entered first would suffer the most losses, it didn't matter to these people. Because they wanted to win, and they wanted the most magnificent victory. Thus, over 100 people appeared at the same time and directly seized 49 spots. Then, when the battle began, they would begin to kill each other. Seeing this scene, Lu Feng was slightly speechless. To be honest, he felt that the top monstrous geniuses didn't move at all. They seemed to be waiting for something. After thinking for a while, Lu Feng understood. These people probably didn't want to face each other in advance. After all, they were all existences who could reach the top 5 in the future. If they met in advance, it would definitely end in a lose-lose situation. This would also limit their future path. Thinking of this, Lu Feng sighed softly. To be honest, this kind of thinking wasn't bad. Unfortunately, this wasn't the kind of thinking that a powerhouse should have. To a powerhouse, no existence was an obstacle. If they had the strength to control the world, would they still care about these things? Therefore, their choice was actually a joke. They just didn't have enough confidence. In the next moment, Lu Feng had already taken a step forward. It was this step that attracted everyone's attention. Although Lu Feng wasn't ranked first, wasn't in the top 5, and was only 8th, He was after all the only emperor-level monstrous genius other than Tian Hui. Moreover, Lu Feng, this emperor-level monstrous genius, was also a true emperor-level monstrous genius. Therefore, although he wasn't the most potential contender, his existence was one of the people who received the most attention. Seeing Lu Feng's movements, these people's expressions were all strange. Because this time, Lu Feng actually chose the first arena. As expected of an emperor-level monstrous genius. In the eyes of such a monstrous genius, only oneself is the most eternal existence. To them, everything else is nothing. As emperor-level monstrous geniuses, they naturally have to choose the position that best suits their status. It's just that this time, apart from Lu Feng, Tian Hui is also an emperor-level monstrous genius. I just don't know if these two people are going to clash in advance. Thinking of this possibility, everyone revealed an excited expression. If they really did clash in advance, although it might lose a lot of the final highlight, it was still acceptable to everyone. In addition to these spectators, those who were competing were also incomparably attentive. This included the few people on the list. They also hoped that Lu Feng and Tian Hui could clash in advance. This way, they would also be able to understand Tian Hui's strength. In the following battle, these people would also be able to have a good idea in their hearts. It's just that I don't know how much strength this Lu Feng can force Tian Hui to show. I think, as an emperor-level monstrous genius, with the pure control of the essence of power he revealed, he should be able to force Tian Hui to reveal at least 70 to 80% of his peak combat strength. This was the thought in the hearts of many people. Of course, Lu Feng didn't know what they were thinking. He didn't have many other thoughts in his heart when he chose the first arena. It was just that since he, Lu Feng, had to choose the strongest arena, the first arena was still empty. This was because those who had rushed to enter here understood that the top existences would definitely choose the arena that was most suitable for their status. Obviously, this first arena would be a place that all the top monstrous geniuses coveted. They really didn't have the confidence to seize that arena directly. In the next moment, Lu Feng had already arrived in the arena. At this moment, Lu Feng was floating quietly in midair. The light in his eyes was dull, but it was filled with an endless domineering majesty. This first arena belongs to me, Lu Feng. I don't know if you agree. Do you agree? Lu Feng used the word no, but the tone he used was one of affirmation. Many people gasped slightly. These people really hadn't expected that Lu Feng would actually choose such a domineering way to seize the first arena directly. Soon, everyone's eyes were fixed on a certain spot. That was Lin Longtian's position. What these people wanted to see was Tian Hui's response. Lin Longtian's camp was silent, as if they had turned a blind eye to Lu Feng's performance. Many of Lin Longtian's disciples were slightly impulsive. Their eyes were filled with resentment. Everyone believed that if it weren't for the fact that they weren't strong enough, these people would have rushed forward and suppressed Lu Feng directly. Lu Feng's eyes were also fixed on Lin Longtian's position. In fact, deep down, Lu Feng didn't want to suppress Tian Hui right away. What he wanted was to directly suppress him under the gaze of hundreds of millions of people. Obviously, there were other arenas around. Naturally, this wasn't the right time. However, this was only Lu Feng's opinion. He also understood that if Tian Hui really chose the first arena and came up directly, there would definitely be a real battle between them. The corners of Lu Feng's mouth curled into a strange smile. He muttered to himself, "Tian Hui, I wonder what you will choose." Time passed by slowly. Even the monstrous geniuses who were participating in the competition had temporarily forgotten to enter the other arenas. Everyone was observing the first arena. They would only feel at ease to challenge it after they had confirmed who would be the winner. Finally, after some time had passed, an existence walked out from Lin Longtian's camp. When they saw him, many people were slightly stunned. Then, a playful smile appeared on their faces. It's actually him. Don't tell me Lin Langtian intends to hide Tianhui until the end? Tianhui hadn't appeared in the previous competitions. Although it seemed unfair, this competition was held by Lin Langtian. Moreover, everyone knew that there wasn't much difference whether Tianhui participated or not. However, these people hadn't expected that Lin Langtian would still let Tianhui hide at such a time. It seemed that Lin Langtian wouldn't release Tianhui until the final confrontation. The one who appeared was also Lin Longtian's disciple. He was a monstrous genius called Lang Lu. On the other hand, he was ranked third on the potential rankings this time. The first was Tianhui. The second was the top monstrous genius of the Yellow Spring sect, Shi Zhong, who was at the peak of the Emperor grade. The third was Lin Longtian's Lang Lu. This time, it's really going to be interesting. Let Lang Lu deal with Lu Feng. I wonder if Lu Feng is stronger or if Lang Lu is stronger. Although Lang Lu was ranked third and Lu Feng was only ranked 8th, both of them should be invincible below the Golden Immortal Realm. Therefore, although Lang Lu's chances of winning were a little higher, no one could say for sure what the real outcome would be if they clashed. These people really didn't know what the outcome would be. Under everyone's gaze, Lang Lu slowly walked into the void step by step. He looked at Lu Feng, nodded slightly, and entered the arena. Countless people's expressions were completely focused at this moment. In the other arenas, no one chose to enter. Because these people wanted to see the ultimate confrontation between these two monstrous geniuses who were ranked in the top 10 on the potential list. Lang Lu will win. A few monstrous geniuses sneered. They had fought with Lang Lu countless times. They knew this seemingly calm, monstrous genius very well. They naturally knew what kind of terrifying explosive power was hidden in Lang Lu's body. Lu Feng is at the peak. He's terrifying, but he's only a peak immortal after all. Compared to Lang Lu, he's really a lot worse. I'm afraid that if Lang Lu is serious, the battle will end in a very short time. This was the thought of those who knew Lang Lu. However, there were only a majority of people who had such thoughts. Not everyone was like this, because in the eyes of the Moon Howl sect's disciples, Lang Lu was bound to lose. Although they had heard of Lang Lu's name and knew that he was a famous peak monstrous genius in the entire Yellow Spring continent, they had really seen that shocking scene for Lu Feng. In the hearts of these people, it was impossible to truly defeat Lu Feng unless a golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven descended. Chapter 884. Silence. Everyone was strangely silent. They were waiting for the final result to appear. Just like that, under everyone's gaze, Lang Lu slowly walked to the peak step by step and walked into the arena. In that instant, countless people's eyes lit up with a dazzling brilliance. They knew that the real battle, the battle that belonged to the younger generation, had begun. Lu Feng was still smiling as he watched Lang Lu walk into the void step by step. He nodded his head gently. "You are Lang Lu of the Lang family?" Lang Lu nodded his head lightly, his face also filled with a kind of indifference. However, everyone could clearly sense that the relaxed look in his eyes wasn't genuine. At that moment, he had already raised his mind attribute. On the other hand, Lu Feng's expression made everyone feel extremely strange. This was because Lu Feng's performance was too indifferent. He was simply incomparably indifferent. He only watched quietly, without the slightest hint of emotion. It was as if this kind of ease came from the depths of his heart. This Lu Feng is really strange. Could it be that he really has the confidence to win? Many people were puzzled and had the same feeling. Looking at Lu Feng, Lang Lu remained silent for a while before finally speaking for the first time. "Lu Feng, right? Actually, I know about your existence. I understand your purpose for coming here this time." Lu Feng was slightly taken aback, but he quickly understood. He knew that this must have been said by Sect Master Lin. After all, only the #1 Sect Master of Lin Langtian, the head of the Lin family, knew about his purpose. Therefore, since he said that he knew, it must have been Sect Master Lin who told him. Lu Feng, actually, I really want to tell you that Tianhui's existence is not something you can go against. I really admire you for being able to challenge Tianhui directly for Linyu. However, your thinking is too simple. Tianhui has already condensed the true power of the autonomous realm. If you haven't reached that step, you will never understand how terrifying the power of the world is. When an existence without the power of a world faces a monstrous genius with the power of a world, the fate of being completely crushed. No matter how extreme and terrifying you are, the result will still be the same. So, I advise you to stop. He was really trying to persuade Lu Feng. Looking at the sincere expression on Lang Lu's face, Lu Feng fell silent. Lang Lu continued, "Perhaps you're confused as to why I'm telling you this, and why I want you to let go. Or perhaps you'll think that Tianhui and I are both Lin Longtian's disciples, and that's why I said that." Lu Feng was silent. He just looked at Lang Lu quietly. He knew that since Lang Lu said these words, then the real situation was definitely not like this. Sure enough, Lang Lu continued, "You're wrong. I don't have a good impression of Tianhui. In fact, I hate him. Coincidentally, I have a good relationship with Linyu." At this moment, Lu Feng came to a realization. It turns out that Lang Lu and Linyu were good friends. No wonder he was willing to tell me this, and even reminded me to let go. If this was the reason, then Lu Feng really understood. He gently nodded his head, and his expression once again returned to its previous indifference. "I understand. But since I'm participating, my goal is clear. Before the real results are out, before I achieve my goal, I won't give up." After hearing Lu Feng's words, Lang Lu only sighed slightly. Sure enough, every genius has their own pride. And now, a peak monstrous genius like you is even more so. However, this time, I can't just watch you challenge him like this. I believe that if you and Tianhui collide, the outcome will be very tragic, because he doesn't know what it means to be merciful. So, I can only apologize. If I don't stop you this time, then when Linyu wakes up, he will blame me. After saying this, his aura began to boil. Vaguely, the heavens and earth trembled slightly. In the void, a great force was condensing and fusing. It was as though it was going to press down on Lu Feng in the next moment, completely suppressing him. Countless people's expressions changed drastically. They could naturally feel this terrifying majesty. At this moment, many people who disdained Lang Lu and thought that he shouldn't be ranked third were completely silent. This is Lang Lu's power? Is this the terrifying power of Lin Longtian's former #1 disciple? He's really powerful. No wonder he's ranked third, only behind Tianhui and Yellow Spring Sect's Shizhong. The surrounding discussions didn't change Lang Lu's mind. He just looked at Lu Feng, the light in his eyes still not disappearing. "Lu Feng, this is not my peak strength. If you can't even beat me, then challenging Tianhui is absolutely courting death. So this time you should give up." Lu Feng smiled faintly. Then there was a hint of laughter. He looked at Lang Lu, smiled, and said in a slightly formal manner, "I can feel that you're sincere in what you're saying. So, I'm very grateful to you. Although I know you're only doing this because of Linyu, I'm still grateful to you. However, you can't stop me. When I see a direction in my eyes, the entire universe has to give way to me." The moment his voice fell, Lu Feng's aura appeared. Lu Feng's aura appeared. Lu Feng's aura, shocking the world, appeared. At this moment, countless existences were horrified and trembling. Many low-level existences were on the verge of collapse. They couldn't even guarantee that they could stand. The fear in their hearts was simply indescribable. What kind of aura is this? Why is it so terrifying and extreme? Countless people were aghast. They couldn't describe the shock in their hearts. They really couldn't imagine how such a thing could happen. How could such a horrifying scene appear? This was simply an invincible aura. Emperor. King. Emperor. This is the most noble aura. What kind of existence is this Lu Feng? How could he refine such an aura? At this moment, just like how no one doubted Lang Lu after sensing his aura, no one doubted Lu Feng's strength anymore. This time, Lu Feng had used his aura and his true power. Because he respected his opponent, he was willing to display his strength. Looking at the shocked and dazed Lang Lu, Lu Feng's expression became serious. In the past, I was struggling to catch up to others, but now I've reached the realm of great success. Although I'm only at the realm of great success for the younger generation, it's still a realm of great success. Throughout the endless eras, among the younger generation, I, Lu Feng, am the king, the ultimate invincible king. Lu Feng's words resounded throughout the entire era, resounding throughout the entire sky. They could say that he was arrogant, or that he was anything. But he, Lu Feng, was such a domineering existence. He was the Emperor Lu Feng. After being here for so long, Lu Feng could finally show his true majesty as an emperor this time. Lang Lu, you're no match for me. You're far from being my match. Once Lu Feng made a move, once he made a move in such a state, the world would collapse and the era would dry up. Therefore, he didn't make a move. Instead, he raised his aura, which had already reached a terrifying level, once again. Countless people gasped and retreated one after another. They couldn't bear the descent of such extreme majesty and chose to retreat in a distant place. A golden immortal's expression was incomparably complicated. Beside him, a middle-aged man stood quietly. At this moment, the golden immortal sighed fiercely. How can this Lu Feng be so extreme and terrifying? If Lu Feng was here, he would definitely be able to recognize this golden immortal. This was because he was the elder who had accepted Lu Feng's bet of 1,000,000 level 5 or 6 pills. Hearing the elder's words, the man beside him smiled helplessly. It seems that you and I have misjudged. We previously thought that Lu Feng bet so much just because he was swayed by his emotions. But we didn't expect that he was really confident enough. He's confident that he can obtain the final victory. 50 million worth of medicinal pills. This was definitely a shocking number. At this moment, this elder was really thinking about how he would explain to the sect once Lu Feng defeated Tian Hui. The man beside him walked over and said slowly, "Right now, he's only showing this kind of aura. Strictly speaking, he hasn't become the final victor yet. After all, his aura is terrifying at its peak. As long as he hasn't comprehended the power of the world, he has no chance of winning against Tian Hui." Hearing his words, the elder's eyes flashed brightly. Yes, although his aura is almost invincible, although the current Lu Feng is enough to become the most invincible combat strength below the Golden Immortal rank. But the watershed of the Golden Immortal rank, the existence of this shackle is not something that can be easily broken by anyone. As long as he hasn't comprehended the power of the world, he has no chance of winning against Tian Hui, who has controlled the power of the world. Actually, I'm overthinking everything. Although he was comforting himself like this, there was still a strange color in the eyes of this Golden Immortal elder. He was looking for some possibilities for himself. Lu Feng looked at Lang Lu with a dignified expression. Coupled with the invincible will that he had condensed at this moment, Lang Lu actually kept retreating. You are really no match for me. I've said it before. In the younger generation, I am the king. No one is my match. You give up. Lang Lu hesitated. He was really hesitant. But in the end, he persevered and didn't take half a step back. Lu Feng, Lin, you once told me that your existence is destined to be incomparably great and terrifying. At first, I just thought that he had never seen the world. But that day, when I learned from the sect master that you were actually an emperor-level monster, I realized that I had underestimated the monsters in the world. However, I still didn't dare to agree with Lin Yu's evaluation of you at that time. But now, it's different. Lu Feng's aura had reached such a level that he looked up to. This undoubtedly proved that Lin Yu's words were not an exaggeration. Lu Feng chuckled but didn't say anything. The next moment, Lang Lu continued, but Lu Feng, as the #1 monster in Lin Langtian, as a peak emperor-level monster, how can I fail like this? So let's fight. Let me see the strength of the person who is worshipped by Lin Yu. Let me see the domineering strength of Lu Feng. His aura increased, his spirit sublimated, and his essence, qi, and spirit entered a perfect level at this moment. This was already his limit of madness and terror. The current Lang Lu was really about to take the embryonic form of invincibility. However, facing such a Lang Lu, all Lu Feng did was to throw a punch. After he was strong enough, he still threw the simplest punch. One punch to break all techniques. Chapter 885. This was the ultimate punch after being washed clean and returned to its original state. What was refined inside was Lu Feng's understanding of martial arts and his persistence in everything. Such an attack was invincible. Invincible. It was simply invincible. The collision occurred in an instant and disappeared in an instant. A silhouette flew out from the arena. Everyone was silent, dumbfounded, and then they went crazy, completely crazy. The one who flew out was Lang Lu. This was within everyone's expectations and also beyond everyone's expectations. Just now, when Lu Feng displayed his violent aura, the kind of will that only revered the emperor between heaven and earth, everyone already understood how powerful and terrifying Lu Feng was. Therefore, it was not hard to imagine what other situations would happen next. And the final result was indeed as expected. In the end, Lu Feng's domineering aura completely suppressed his opponent. It's not that Lang Lu is too weak, but that Lu Feng is too heaven-defying. Countless people trembled, overwhelmed with shock. Looking at Lu Feng, who directly suppressed the peak heaven immortal Lang Lu after a blow in the distance, the golden immortal sucked in a deep breath of cold air. This time, directly adjust Lu Feng's odds to 2 times, no, to 1 time. I can feel that Lu Feng's trump card is definitely not as simple as it seems. His strength will be even greater in the future. Previously, Lu Feng was ranked 8th and was not thought highly of. However, after such a battle, no one dared to say anything. Lu Feng defeated the 3rd-ranked Lang Lu. His victory was so strong that it could even be said to be a complete crushing. Such strength was definitely more terrifying than the 2nd-ranked Shi Zhong. Lu Feng stood quietly. The expression in his eyes was calm and the terrifying aura around him had been restrained. This was Lu Feng's confidence. He was confident that Lang Lu would not be able to fight after his blow just now. As expected, a look of fear and bitterness appeared on Lang Lu's face as he lay on the ground. He was indeed suppressed by Lu Feng's powerful killing intent, to the extent that he couldn't even react in the slightest. Moreover, he could feel that Lu Feng's attack was very measured. Under the situation of suppressing him, he only made him lose the ability to fight, but his body did not suffer any major injuries. This degree of control was even more shocking. Lang Lu raised his head and looked at Lu Feng. There was an indescribable color in his eyes. He murmured, "Lu Feng, that wasn't your strongest strength just now, right? If it was the strongest power, how could Lu Feng control it? How could he do it to such an extent?" Lu Feng was silent for a moment before he gently nodded his head. Looking at this scene, Lang Lu finally let out a helpless sigh. As expected, Lin Yu's description of you is not exaggerated at all. An elder named Lin Langtian appeared beside him. He slowly picked up Lang Lu, who was no longer able to move, from the ground. He looked at Lu Feng with a slightly grateful look in his eyes. Everyone had already understood Lu Feng's approach just now. It was because they understood that they felt that Lu Feng was almost invincible. He could control it perfectly. He could achieve such a perfect level of control. After displaying a killing intent that was almost at the level of a golden immortal, he could still leave so much energy to ensure that Lang Lu was not seriously injured. Such an approach proved that such an extreme power just now was still not Lu Feng's limit. After waiting for Lang Lu to be sent out, Lu Feng once again floated in midair. His aura was restrained and he was so quiet. There was no doubt that he was waiting for the next person to challenge him on the stage. However, it was a pity that after a long time, no one dared to step on this battle stage. Even though this battle stage belonged to the first battle stage, which symbolized glory and identity, no one chose to step on it again. This was because even someone as strong as Lang Lu, who was ranked third, was easily suppressed by Lu Feng. What about the others? It would only be a joke if they went up. Therefore, these people were silent. In this way, the first battle stage was really empty. In this case, only the second-ranked Shizhong and the first-ranked Tian Hui are qualified to step on the first battle stage. Since the third-ranked was easily suppressed, only the second and first-ranked could step up. However, it was a pity that the first-ranked Tian Hui did not appear from beginning to end. He seemed to be waiting for the last 50 people to fight before stepping on the stage. As for the second-ranked Shizhong, he just quietly glanced at the first battle stage and chose the second battle stage. The first battle stage itself was a taboo. Obviously, it was even more so this time. Lu Feng was still quietly floating in the air even after the shocking collisions occurred in the other battle stages. Still, no one chose to provoke him. Undoubtedly, this was a very surprising scene. In this way, after a day, the list of 50 people was finally decided. At this time, after a new adjustment, the ranking of strength in the hearts of the people was completely changed. Lu Feng had replaced Lang Lu as the second-ranked existence. Moreover, his odds were the same as the first-ranked Tian Hui, which was double. However, even so, in the hearts of many people, Tian Hui was still the first candidate. After all, most of these people already knew that Tian Hui had used a special method to comprehend the true invincible strength of the younger generation. He had comprehended the true essence and strength that filled the world. Therefore, no matter how strong Lu Feng was and how exaggerated his performance was, in the hearts of the people, he was still not a match for Tian Hui. When an elder named Lin Lang Tian appeared in the void and announced the list of 50 people, many people gradually left. The final battle of 50 people would take place in a few days. Therefore, these people would not wait here. Soon, the people in the entire square had disappeared. Lu Feng slowly walked down from the arena. At this moment, many monstrous geniuses and geniuses appeared beside him. These people were either going to participate in the competition or were the genius disciples of various big sections. They had come to find Lu Feng to build a relationship. These people all understood that even if Lu Feng did not win this time, the real number one monster was Lu Feng, not Tian Hui. If he lost, it would only be because his true level was too low. Everyone believed that if Lu Feng became a true immortal, he would definitely not lose to Tian Hui. Moreover, Lu Feng represented the ultimate combat strength in the future. He was an incomparably brilliant and shocking combat strength. Such an existence had to be on good terms with, because what he represented was his future development. Lu Feng was too embarrassed to say anything when he saw the friendly expressions of the people around him. He could only talk about useless things with them. However, just as Lu Feng was at his most frustrated, a monster from Lin Lang Tian suddenly appeared. He came to Lu Feng's side and bowed slightly. "Young Master Lu, our sect master would like to invite." Lu Feng could see that the monster was wearing Lin Lang Tian's clothes. The words "Lin" were clearly engraved on the clothes. He knew that this was a disciple of Lin Lang Tian's Lin family. Lu Feng gently nodded his head. After exchanging a few pleasantries with the people around him, he also left. The monsters and geniuses of the other sex wanted to get closer to Lu Feng and at least get familiar with him. However, since Sect Master Lin of Lin Lang Tian had invited them, they naturally did not dare say anything. One had to know that Sect Master Lin of Lin Lang Tian was the #1 expert in the Yellow Spring continent. He was a true perfected flowing time, immortal venerate. Naturally, they could not compete with Sect Master Lin. Under the guidance of the monster from Lin Lang Tian, Lu Feng once again came to the front of the Yellow Spring Pavilion. It was also at this point that the disciple finally stopped. "Young Master Lu, Sect Master is waiting for you inside. You can go in by yourself." Lu Feng nodded and was about to enter. After all, this was not the first time he had come here. However, just as Lu Feng was about to enter, the monster from Lin Lang Tian suddenly said, "This time, many thanks to young Master Lu." Lu Feng was slightly taken aback and looked at him in confusion. The monstrous genius of the Lin family chuckled and began to explain. "Many thanks to young Master Lu for showing mercy to Lang Lu." This was something that everyone could see. After all, if Lu Feng had really attacked Lang Lu at that time, then Lang Lu would have been seriously injured. But he didn't. After returning, he just needed to rest a little and he would be fine. Then, many disciples would owe Lu Feng a favor. After all, it was Lang Lu who had challenged him. Lu Feng smiled gently and shook his head. "Although I am not familiar with Lang Lu, I am acquainted with Lin Yu from the Lin family. This time, I came here to look for Lin Yu." In an instant, a strange look flashed across the monster's eyes. He was a monster, and his intellect was terrifying. After hearing Lu Feng's words, he vaguely understood something. "Young Master Lu, many thanks. However, you should also take note that the rumors outside are actually true." His words had already shown that this monster had understood Lu Feng's purpose this time. In fact, it was easy to understand if one thought about it. The qualification to enter the Holy Land was very precious to ordinary people. They would even be willing to give up everything in exchange for it. However, it was nothing to Lu Feng. After all, Lu Feng was an upright, top-notch emperor-level monster. If he wanted to enter the Holy Land, he could just go there directly. The Holy Land had never prohibited emperor-level monsters. Therefore, Lu Feng was definitely not here for one of the 5 spots. At this time, Lu Feng also said that he was acquainted with Lin Yu. Mentioning Lin Yu at such a time had already made others think of something. After all, Lin Yu had been seriously injured because of an unfairness. Lu Feng smiled gently and shook his head. "No need to thank me. After all, my relationship with Lin Yu is still very good." These words made the monster's eyes shine incomparably brighter. He understood that Lu Feng had admitted it. After bidding farewell to the monster, Lu Feng walked directly into the Acheron Tower. In an instant, the feeling of heaven and earth being replaced came again, sending Lu Feng directly into another spacetime. Everything around him was still the same as the Holy Land of Immortals. This time, it was even more luxurious and attractive. However, it was different from the previous time when no one appeared. Only a voice was heard. This time, Sect Master Lin Langtian appeared. A middle-aged man stood quietly in the center of the Holy Land of Immortals. He was like an immortal from the 9 heavens who had descended to the mortal world. With just a glance, Lu Feng understood that this person must be the sect master of the Lin family, which was also the #1 expert in the Acheron continent, Venerable Immortal Lin Long. "I didn't expect Venerable Immortal Lin Long to come here personally." Chapter 886. Venerable Lin Long didn't seem to be surprised that Lu Feng was able to identify her. She just smiled gently and waved her arm, opening up a small spatial zone beside Lu Feng. Soon after, a luxurious chair automatically flew out from the spatial zone and arrived behind Lu Feng. Lu Feng was incomparably indifferent towards all this. He felt as if he was completely at home. Lu Feng sat on the chair without any hesitation. Venerable Lin Long looked at Lu Feng with a calm expression. However, Lu Feng could sense that Venerable Lin Long wasn't as calm as he thought. Sure enough, after a long time, Venerable Lin Long let out a long sigh. Lu Feng, first of all, I would like to thank you for showing mercy. Lu Feng smiled gently and didn't say anything. Seeing Lu Feng's reaction, Venerable Immortal Lin Long seemed to have already expected it. She also smiled gently. Actually, I asked you to come here because I hope to see you properly and ask you some questions. Lu Feng nodded. You can ask any questions you want. As long as it's possible, I'll make it clear. Lu Feng said that as long as it's possible. However, there were some things that he was destined not to explain. After all, there was no relationship between him and Venerable Lin Long. Venerable Lin Long smiled and asked slowly, Actually, what I want to ask the most is your identity. Such a performance is indeed shocking. Perhaps those people don't understand. However, I understand that this is definitely not something that an Emperor Realm monster can possess. You can't be an Emperor Realm monster. Vaguely, there was an indescribable brilliance in her eyes. Looking at Lu Feng, Venerable Lin Long gradually became serious. Lu Feng remained silent for a moment. After a while, he nodded gently. You've already thought of it, Venerable Lin Long said directly. An Emperor Realm monster can fight across 7 levels. Of course, this so-called fighting across 7 levels refers to being able to advance 7 levels. Some terrifying existences can even surpass 8 levels. The limit is the mythical 9 levels. Your current breakthrough has already reached at least 8 levels. However, I can feel that the invincible attack you unleashed at the very last moment has definitely reached a level that is shocking to the world. The strength of your attack is definitely at the level of a golden immortal. In other words, you've advanced at least 9 levels, 9 levels. This was definitely the peak of the mythical state of an Emperor Realm monster. However, such a limit was still not Lu Feng's limit. If it was the limit, then Venerable Lin Long. She believed that Venerable Lin Long would definitely be able to break through to a higher level. Undoubtedly, this proved that Lu Feng wasn't an Emperor Realm monster to begin with. Your true identity should be the Ultimate King, the Ultimate King. It represented the ultimate, the pinnacle of all evildoers, the most invincible existence in history. Lu Feng was the Taboo King, the ultimate king of the second universe. Lu Feng wouldn't deny this point. After a moment of silence, he nodded his head gently. In an instant, an unprecedented radiance appeared on Venerable Lin Long's face. He looked at Lu Feng and took a deep breath. His expression was constantly fluctuating. Although he was a great perfection flowing time immortal venerable, the strongest expert in the entire Yellow Spring continent, and one of the most invincible existences in the entire second universe. However, when he knew Lu Feng's identity, he couldn't help but be shocked. The ultimate king, what kind of noble existence was that? In the endless time and space, even the immortal lords of the 3 holy lands couldn't be compared to the ultimate king. After all, there would be one or even a few immortal lords of the Holy Lands in every era. However, there had only been a few ultimate kings since ancient times. Then you are, the 5 ultimate kings were the Emperor, the Divine King, the Sage King, the Immortal King, and the Demon King. Since ancient times, there were only the 5 Taboo Kings, which were also the ultimate kings. Venerable Lin Long knew that Lu Feng must be one of the 5 Taboo Kings. At this moment, after Lu Feng admitted it, even with her noble identity, Venerable Lin Long couldn't help but be shocked. Lu Feng was silent again, but this time, it didn't take too long. Soon, he said, I am the Emperor. The Emperor. The Emperor Lu Feng. The Emperor Lu Feng. He's actually the Emperor. At this moment, Venerable Lin Long appeared in a strange light. Emperor, Emperor. How can you be the Emperor? It had been a long time since Lu Feng came here, so he already knew some things. He naturally knew that the Emperor, one of the 5 taboo kings, had actually made a breakthrough after reaching the human king realm and became a true ancient divine emperor, an invincible existence in the ultimate heaven of the 33rd layer. Besides, Lu Feng also knew that as the most terrifying ultimate monarch among the 5 great taboo monarchs, the monarch was a little stronger than the other 4 ultimate monarchs. This time, he chose to make a breakthrough, but he still didn't use the accumulation of those eras. He would only use those accumulation when he broke through to the supreme ruler realm. In other words, the emperor should be an existence that could break through to the supreme ruler realm in the future. Therefore, Venerable Lin Long couldn't help but be shocked when she heard the emperor's name. After all, the current emperor should be a divine emperor with the combat strength of the ultimate heaven of the 33rd layer. Unlike Lu Feng, who was just a peak immortal, Lu Feng continued to smile. I am indeed the emperor, but my emperor is not the emperor of the ultimate kings. My emperor is the emperor that belongs exclusively to me, or rather, the emperor that stands above everything. He slowly stood up, his eyes were filled with endless turbulence. The chi of a supreme emperor spread out, causing Venerable Lin Long to be slightly shocked. At this moment, the noble aura that Lu Feng was exuding was much more powerful than what he had displayed during the competition. Perhaps this was where his true aura was. In that case, you're the new emperor. I can feel that you're very terrifying, incomparably terrifying, enough to become the ultimate king. Then, can you tell me what's the limit of your strength? Lu Feng looked at Venerable Lin Long and shook his head slightly. It's not that I can't tell you, because I don't know how to say it. My strength is actually very contradictory, so I can't explain it clearly. After using all the taboo techniques and activating the twin souls, he was comparable to any 3rd-layer golden immortal. Once he used his ultimate strength, the existence of 1 billion mortal dust and 1 billion immortals could even annihilate a peak golden immortal. In that case, he should be considered as a peak true immortal from the 3rd to the 4th layer. But the reality wasn't like that, because he still had a final trump card, and that was the taboo realm of battle strength. Once he broke the taboo realm of battle strength, he would be the peak immortal king. And if he used the strength of 1 billion mortal dust and 1 billion immortals in such a situation, even an ordinary flowing time immortal venerable would fall under his hands. Therefore, Lu Feng couldn't accurately determine his strength. Of course, Venerable Lin Long wouldn't understand these things. Seeing that Lu Feng didn't want to talk about it, she didn't ask anymore. Actually, when you admitted that you're the taboo king, I still have a second question to ask. That is, what's the relationship between you and the invincible taboo Liu Bei 4,000 years ago? One was called Liu Bei and the other was called Lu Feng. Both of them were heaven-defying, which made people think of something. Even the eternal immortal lord from the end ancient era, who had been suppressed in the sealed land and sunk into the abyss, knew about the human king, and could guess the relationship between Lu Feng and the human king. So, how could Venerable Lin Long, who often walked on the continent, not think of it? Lu Feng nodded gently. Liu Bei is my ancestor. Venerable Lin Long gently nodded her head. Her expression was filled with slight shock and a kind of hazy and complicated emotions. Sure enough, this bloodline is really heaven-defying. First, it was the human king Liu Bei, then it was the emperor Lu Feng. This bloodline could be said to be a heaven-defying bloodline. Lu Feng smiled and nodded. Just the power of the bloodline alone was a kind of supreme power that was comparable to the truth of the laws born from the origin of the universe. One could imagine how heaven-defying and terrifying the human king was. No wonder you don't want to join our Lin Langtian. Indeed, with such a powerful ancestor, our Lin Langtian and even the 3 holy lands are nothing to you. Moreover, you're the ultimate king. At this moment, Venerable Lin Long was filled with melancholy. Although Lin Langtian was the #1 sect in the Yellow Spring continent, there was still a big gap between them and the top emperor-level sects and the 3 great Holy Lands. Therefore, it was reasonable for Lu Feng to look down on them. Actually, you're thinking too much. I don't want to join because I really don't need it. It's not that I look down on Lin Langtian. In my eyes, there's no difference. Because I don't care about these things. Lu Feng didn't care at all. With his existence, the sect could no longer provide him with anything. What he needed was endless battles. Hearing these words and seeing Lu Feng's sincere expression, Venerable Lin Long's expression finally became calm. Lu Feng, I don't need to say more about recruiting you. After all, we know our own situation. We're not qualified to recruit you. However, if there's anything you need in the future, you can find us at any time. As long as it's within our ability, we'll spare no effort to help you. Since she gave up on recruiting him, she chose to build a good relationship with Lu Feng. This was Venerable Lin Long's plan, and Lu Feng naturally wouldn't refuse. He nodded his head lightly. Actually, in this world, I feel the same about the other sections. However, I obviously have a better impression of Lin Langtian. After all, Lin Yu is one of Lin Langtian's people. Lu Feng's words were very obvious. The biggest relationship between him and Lin Langtian was Lin Yu. This was to increase Lin Yu's status in Lin Langtian. Of course, Venerable Lin Long understood Lu Feng's words. He smiled and nodded. Chapter 887. Lin Yu is the pinnacle monstrous talent of Lin Langtian. He's also the pinnacle monstrous talent of Lin family. He's almost on par with his father. Moreover, he's already the pinnacle monstrous talent of Emperor stage. This time, after he wakes up and we gather the last things, we'll start to improve his strength and aptitude. We'll make him an existence on par with Tian Hui. Becoming an existence on par with Tian Hui meant that Lin Yu had to become an Emperor stage monstrous talent. Such a method reminded Lu Feng of the time when Yu family improved Yu's glory in the primal universe. Of course, this was definitely Lin Langtian's secret. However, they told him this at this moment, which undoubtedly proved that Lin Yu was highly valued in Lin Langtian. He was the future pillar of Lin Langtian. This could also be considered as an explanation to Lu Feng. Lu Feng nodded. Looking at Lu Feng, Venerable Immortal Lin Long hesitated for a moment before asking. Lu Feng, I don't know if you have enough confidence this time? Although you can improve to 9 levels, which is almost equivalent to the power of a second-layer Golden Immortal. However, you're still just a pinnacle immortal. Tian Hui might not be as good as you. However, with the help of the Tian family, he has successfully comprehended the existence of the power of the world. You should know that the existence of the power of the world is equivalent to the domain of the Immortal King for those below the Golden Immortal Realm. The domain of the Immortal King was also the Divine King's forbidden mythological domain. The increase during this period was only a difference of 2 times. Entering the domain of the Divine King's forbidden mythological domain would increase one's strength by 11 times. If one didn't enter the domain, it would only increase one's strength by 10 times. If one only looked at the multiplier of the increase, it could be said that the difference wasn't very big. However, the effect produced was like heaven and earth. Once one entered the domain of the Divine King's forbidden mythological domain, the powerful power was absolutely unimaginable and incomparable. The same was true for the power of the world of a Golden Immortal. A Golden Immortal who didn't comprehend the power of the world, even if he was a pinnacle Golden Immortal, couldn't be compared to a Golden Immortal who had comprehended the power of the world. That was why Venerable Lin Long said such words. Lu Feng already understood what Venerable Lin Long meant. In her heart, she didn't think that she could defeat Tian Hui. He didn't think that he could defeat the world energy, nor did he think that he had comprehended the world energy. Indeed, Lu Feng himself also understood that he had no possibility of defeating the power of the world. Although he was heaven-defying, he was still just a pinnacle immortal. If a quantitative change could lead to a qualitative change, then Lu Feng didn't even have a quantitative change. How could he win? However, even if he could not defeat an existence with the power of the world without using the power of the world, it did not mean that he could not defeat Tian Hui. That was because he also had the power of the world. The power of the world that Lu Feng used was even stronger than the power of the world that Tian Hui had used. This was because he had directly refined the world into his body. Once he used the limit of his battle body, each of his attacks would trigger the existence of the entire world. This was far from being comparable to the power of the world that Tian Hui had obtained through the support of the world energy. Of course, Lu Feng wouldn't explain anything. He only said confidently, "I understand all of this, but I don't think that I can't defeat him. Let's wait until the end of the competition." Lu Feng didn't want to say anything else because he would know everything after the competition ended. If Lu Feng was just an ordinary genius, Venerable Lin Long would have taught him a lesson with such an attitude. But it was different now. Lu Feng was the final king. If they were to talk about status, Venerable Lin Long's status was not as noble as the final king. Therefore, at this moment, after hearing Lu Feng's words, he only nodded slightly. 3 days later, it will be the official start of the 50-man finals. At that time, it will depend on your performance. After leaving Acheron Pavilion, Lu Feng returned to his residence. There weren't many people around Lu Feng's residence, as if they had already received Venerable Lin Long's instructions. This place seemed to have been turned into a restricted area and no one was allowed to disturb him. Sensing the situation, Lu Feng smiled in his heart. He knew that this was all done by Venerable Lin Long in these 3 days. I can calm down and feel the comprehension of the pill scripture again. The pill scripture was the essential guarantee for Lu Feng to be able to concoct such heaven-defying pills. As for the pill scripture, as Lu Feng's level increased, the comprehension he gained would be different every time. Lu Feng planned to read it again and strive to be able to concoct peak 8th grade legendary pills after becoming a sacred master. In these 3 days, Lu Feng spent 2 days in his Sea of Consciousness in Shen Yuan to gain a deeper understanding of the pill scripture. On the last day, Lu Feng chose to concoct pills. Of course, this time, Lu Feng wasn't foolish enough to concoct 8th grade pills again. After all, due to the level of his mental strength, he couldn't concoct pills at all. Lu Feng obviously didn't have the habit of being abused and wasting. Therefore, before becoming a true sacred master, he didn't plan to concoct any 8th grade pills. This time, he concocted a 7th grade pill. A 7th grade pill was also a legendary grade pill. Although it couldn't be compared to a 8th grade pill, it was already on a different level from a 6th grade pill. In one day, Lu Feng concocted more than 100 7th grade pills with his abnormal concoction speed. In this place, a 6th grade pill was equivalent to 5 5th grade pills, and a 7th grade pill was equivalent to more than 100 6th grade pills. Of course, this was just an exchange ratio. Strictly speaking, this ratio was much higher than that of a normal person. After all, a 6th grade pill couldn't be compared to a 7th grade pill. This meant that there were 2 different levels. Lu Feng had only used 1 day to refine level 5 high-grade medicinal pills that were equivalent to 50,000 to 100,000. Such speed was simply outrageous. Looking at all the perfect grade pills in front of him, Lu Feng smiled proudly. In the next moment, he opened up his personal space and stored all the pills inside. I spent about a few hundred to 1,000 5th grade pills worth of divine items to concoct these pills. However, what I obtained was at least equivalent to 50,000 5th grade pills worth. The gains are really too great. This was simply a huge profit. This is only a 7th grade pill. If it were a 8th grade pill, then the actual situation would increase by more than 10 times. The exchange ratio between an 8th grade pill and a 7th grade pill was as high as 10 to 1. One could imagine the terrifying profits involved. After collecting all the pills, Lu Feng finally got up and walked outside. Today was the official day of the finals. Although Lu Feng wasn't interested in the so-called top 5, top 10, or the so-called first and second place. However, he was very interested in Tian Hui. How could he, Lu Feng, let go of someone who had hurt his friend? Pushing open the door, Lu Feng followed the familiar path and quickly arrived at the competition venue. At this moment, the appearance of the venue had changed. Previously, during the extreme battles, the competition venue also existed within the venue. However, this time was different. Unknowingly, 5 huge arenas were quietly suspended in the void. Obviously, this was the real venue of the final competition. Seeing Lu Feng's arrival, the square was silent for a moment. Then, what followed was earth-shattering cheers. The crowd was really a little crazy. After all, in the past, they might not even have the chance to see a monster like Lu Feng in their lifetime. Between them and him, he was simply an existence from a different world. Lu Feng, is this the second-ranked Lu Feng? I heard that 3 days ago, he stood alone in the first arena, and no one dared to challenge him. What a great power! Of course. You didn't see before. This Lu Feng suppressed a monster like Lin Langtian, the third-ranked existence, in one move. Just how terrifying is the strength required for this? Can you imagine it? This time, it was publicly acknowledged that the first-ranked was the strongest. However, the second-ranked to the 7th-ranked were more or less the same. Just like the Imperial Heavenly Sex Monster against the Immortal Sex Monster, there was a difference of 2 ranks between them. However, in the end, there was a life-and-death battle. This proved that the rankings between the second-ranked to the 7th-ranked didn't mean anything. But who would have thought that such an insignificant ranking would result in such a result? The person ranked 8th had defeated the person ranked 3rd. Furthermore, he had only used a single move. Just one move was enough to suppress the 3rd-ranked powerfully. This was undoubtedly shocking, and it also made people realize Lu Feng's strength even more. Finally, under the gazes of hundreds of millions of people, Lu Fenglai arrived at the spectator stands that were parallel to the void arena. Lu Feng sat quietly in his seat and waited quietly. During this period, the other monstrous geniuses arrived one after another. However, the battle still hadn't started, because these people were all waiting for one person. They were waiting for the true main character of this grand competition. Just as Lu Feng was silent, an earth-shattering roar erupted between heaven and earth. This was even more shocking and crazier than when he'd arrived. Lu Feng slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, a faint smile hung at the corners of his mouth. Lu Feng knew that he had come. He walked quietly in the void without any extravagant decorations. However, his body was a symbol of luxury and grandeur. This was the symbol of an emperor-level monster. Compared to Lu Fenglai, Tian Hui's appearance was undoubtedly much more magnificent. On the other hand, Lu Feng was really no different from an ordinary person. Finally, amidst the cheers of hundreds of millions of people, Tian Hui slowly walked to the spectator stands. In an instant, strange expressions appeared on the faces of the 48 monstrous geniuses. They were all brimming with fighting spirit. Although Tian Hui was widely acknowledged as the most powerful existence in the world, Tian Hui was the most powerful. However, even though he was powerful, these people couldn't be shaken. After all, these people were monstrous geniuses themselves. They had come here to make a name for themselves. Therefore, when they saw the strongest existence, they all wanted to defeat him. Tian Hui glanced around, as if he was a noble emperor, quietly inspecting his subjects. When they saw his domineering, imposing gaze, many people had different expressions on their faces. However, most of them had an awe-inspiring look on their faces. However, there was only one person who wasn't like that. That person was Lu Feng. Chapter 888. In the face of all this, Lu Feng was calm, extremely calm. He only watched calmly and quietly. At this moment, Tian Hui's eyes finally met Lu Feng's. Are you also here to challenge me? I just don't know, as a mere peak immortal, what ability do you have? Why do you have the confidence to challenge me? He spoke very indifferently, and his expression was also very indifferent, but Lu Feng still saw a kind of disdain in his eyes. Lu Feng chuckled, still chuckling. At this moment, he finally stood up slowly. By the time Lu Feng stood up completely, the calmness in his eyes had gradually disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a slight chill. Actually, if you had appeared earlier, I would have chosen to fight you directly. I don't care about the title of number one. This time, my purpose for coming here is very simple, very simple. That is, to teach you a lesson. Lu Feng didn't conceal his voice at all. At this moment, everyone heard him clearly. They looked at Lu Feng in a daze. Previously, Lu Feng had said this. At that time, he was fighting against another monstrous genius. However, in the hearts of these people, Lu Feng's words were just propaganda. He didn't really intend to do this. However, now that Lu Feng said it, everyone understood. Lu Feng was serious. Tian Hui was slightly taken aback when he heard Lu Feng's words. A doubtful expression appeared on his face. He looked at Lu Feng for a long time and didn't make any movements. Just like this, everyone was watching the two of them. After waiting for a long time, Tian Hui finally frowned. He looked at Lu Feng and slowly asked, I don't seem to know you. In fact, I don't even know who you are. I don't understand. Why would you want to teach me a lesson? It wasn't just Tian Hui, everyone else was puzzled. After all, Lu Feng's identity was too mysterious. They had never heard of him before. And yet, this person who had appeared out of nowhere was here for Tian Hui. He wasn't here for the grand feat of the Dual Emperor competition, nor was he here for the title of number one. He was here to teach Tian Hui a lesson. This made them puzzled. These people could naturally feel Lu Feng's sincerity when he said these words. They also understood that with Lu Feng's status, he would disdain telling lies to deceive them. Lu Feng chuckled, an indifferent look in his eyes. You don't know me. But I know you. Because of my friend, I know you. You should be familiar with my friend. His name is Lin Yu. Hearing this, Tian Hui instantly showed a look of understanding. Many people were the same. Those who didn't understand began to ask the people around them who knew everything. Who was this Lin Yu? Of course, Tian Hui didn't care about the attitude of the people around him. He just stared at Lu Feng, his eyes filled with mockery. I really thought that I had offended you before. It turns out that you are here for that piece of trash. Indeed, I suppressed him and severely injured him. However, he brought all this on himself. If you don't have enough strength, don't be so ostentatious and show off how powerful you are. His tone was full of disdain. When he heard this, Lu Feng didn't get angry. Instead, he remained indifferent. Finally, he smiled faintly. His smile was also indifferent. Yes, if you don't have enough strength, don't be so ostentatious. Although his voice was calm, there was a strange undertone to it. No one was an idiot. They naturally understood what he meant. Since Tian Hui had described Lin Yu in this way, then Lu Feng's words were also describing Tian Hui. A cold glint flashed across his eyes, and his face darkened slightly. Tian Hui snorted. Of course, I'm also saying the same thing to you. Although you are an emperor-level monster, so am I. No matter what, the fact that I am an emperor-level monster cannot be changed. You and I are the same kind of existence. You don't have the right to look down on me. Lu Feng turned around and didn't look at Tian Hui anymore. In the eyes of many people, emperor-level monsters were emperor-level monsters. There was no difference. However, as an apex monster, Lu Feng knew the difference. Back then, Feather Yu Ronghua had only comprehended two supreme powers. One of them had been with the help of Feather Yuqingran's bloodline. He was an Emperor-level monster, and the Emperor's son was also an Emperor-level monster. However, was there any comparison between the two of them? No, there was no comparison at all. The Emperor's son's existence could surpass a level and defeat Feather Yuronghua. This was the fundamental difference. When he saw Lu Feng's disdainful expression, Tian Hui's face darkened. Naturally, he couldn't do or say anything in front of so many people. Therefore, after taking one last long look at Lu Feng, he walked back to his seat. The 50 people had all appeared and were sitting in their respective seat. They were all filled with fighting spirit. They were already prepared for a true battle that would turn the world upside down. In fact, among these 50 people, other than the top 10 who were very strong, the rest of them weren't much weaker. Therefore, there would definitely be a bloody battle between these people. The first is Tian Hui, and the second is definitely Lu Feng. He's too strong. I'm afraid even Shizhong isn't his match. As for the third, I think the poem is too heavy. The top 3 should be the same. However, it's hard to say who will be ranked 10th. After all, there isn't much difference between the top 10 and the top 10. If it wasn't for the freak from the Emperor Heaven sect who was accidentally eliminated in the previous clash, and if it wasn't for Lu Feng who suppressed Lin Longtian's disciple, I'm afraid this battle would be even more exciting. This was also a kind of helplessness. Many people thought highly of Lin Longtian's disciple, Lang Lu. Unfortunately, he was suppressed by Lu Feng. Many people thought highly of the Yellow Spring sect's disciple, but he was also defeated by a disciple from an upper immortal sect. Therefore, some things couldn't be done just by thinking about it. What was needed was strength. After an endless silence, one of Lin Longtian's Immortal King experts finally walked out slowly. His eyes were incomparably calm. He looked at the many existences in silence. In the next moment, he suddenly opened his mouth and announced, "The final competition begins. On the 5 arenas, there will be a truly earth-shattering clash. Go up the stage according to the lot you've drawn." With a gentle wave of his hand, 50 sparkling balls appeared in an instant. These balls landed in the hands of the many existences, one for each person. Lu Feng looked at the ball in front of him and sent his mental energy into it. He instantly understood. In his ball, there was an ancient number quietly displayed. Lu Feng knew that this was the number that was commonly used in the second universe, and his number was 17. In other words, Lu Feng would be the one to go up the stage in the second round. As expected, the people who got first to 10th all appeared. They walked into the arenas separately. At this moment, the entire world was filled with solemnity. Countless people were paying attention. It was a kind of excited attention, because among these 10 people, there was Tian Hui. These people didn't expect that Tian Hui would actually go up the stage so early. According to the place he was heading to, his number should be number 3. In an instant, many people began to look around. They were looking for who was so unlucky to have drawn the number 4 death tag. In the next moment, they all saw a person walking quietly into the second arena. When they saw him, some people showed a puzzled look. However, after hearing the explanation of the people around them, they understood. This was the monstrous genius who ranked 6. However, he wasn't an existence from this continent. He was a peak monstrous genius from the surrounding continents. His strength was that of a high-level true immortal. Power was terrifying, enough to be called an existence that was truly invincible below the golden immortal realm. His payout was 15 times. From this, it could be seen that the sage was also a powerful existence. Seeing his appearance, the monstrous geniuses around Lu Feng revealed a playful smile. Although they didn't know Tian Hui's specific strength, these people believed that Tian Hui should be stronger than this person. However, although he was strong, if they wanted to defeat him, they would need to pay some strength. What they wanted to see was Tian Hui's strength. Only through this could they know the extent of Tian Hui's strength. In the next moment, many people's eyes became cautious, and they began to pay full attention. In fact, among the 5 arenas this time, besides Tian Hui, there was also a monstrous genius in the top 10. However, his opponent was definitely not a match for him. Therefore, although the top 10 existences participated in that battle, not many people paid attention to it. At this moment, when everyone's attention was focused, the immortal king expert finally announced the start of the battle in another arena. The moment the battle began, it was a fierce confrontation. Almost the entire arena was shaking. The scene was extremely shocking, and it made people feel relaxed and happy. However, in this arena, which was the most watched arena, neither of the two moved. They just looked at each other and watched quietly. Of course, this was only the feeling of those different people. In the eyes of Lu Feng and the other monstrous geniuses and experts, these two people had actually started the real battle. The battle between them now was a battle of wills. Because whether it was Tian Hui or the monstrous genius from the other continent, they both hoped to intimidate the other through their aura and will. This way, they would be able to gain the upper hand in the future confrontation. It would be of great use. Sensing the will and aura of the two, Lu Feng chuckled softly. This monstrous genius from the other continent is indeed not bad. He must have smelted some divine item or cultivated some cultivation technique. His aura and will are indeed the best among these monstrous geniuses. Unfortunately, his thinking is still too simple. Lu Feng shook his head and muttered to himself. Beside Lu Feng, one of the monstrous geniuses was slightly taken aback when he heard Lu Feng's words. He looked at Lu Feng and asked slowly after a slight hesitation. I wonder what young Master Lu means? I can feel that this monstrous genius from the other continent's aura is really terrifying. Compared to our level, he is a level stronger. In that case, if he fights against Tian Hui like this, even if he can't suppress him in terms of aura and win, at least he can't guarantee that the battle will be in a disadvantageous position. This was the understanding of those monstrous geniuses. Hearing his question, Lu Feng chuckled softly. Actually, his idea is not bad. Using his own strengths to attack someone else's weaknesses. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong opponent this time. His thinking is too simple. An emperor-level monstrous genius is simply not something he can imagine. Of course, Tian Hui only became an emperor-level monstrous genius by relying on other things. He can't be considered a powerful emperor-level monstrous genius. Even so, don't forget one thing. At this moment, a resplendent light appeared in Lu Feng's eyes. The monstrous genius who had asked the question beside him was slightly taken aback. He looked at Lu Feng and asked subconsciously, "What did I forget? How could such an existence miss out? How could he forget in the middle of a battle like this? This shouldn't be. It was impossible." Lu Feng didn't look at him. His eyes were fixed on the two people in front of him, who were quietly staring at each other in the arena and clashing with their auras. I forgot. That was a rumor. Besides being an emperor-level monstrous genius, Tian Hui should also be an existence that has comprehended the power of the realm. Upon hearing Lu Feng's words, the monstrous genius frowned slightly. He didn't quite understand the meaning behind Lu Feng's words. However, in the next moment, he seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed drastically and a bitter taste appeared in his mouth. Chapter 889. Indeed, he has forgotten. As for me, I have forgotten as well. Rumor has it that Tian Hui has comprehended the power of the world. Since he has comprehended the power of the world, he should have at least comprehended the existence of the world. His own will carries the power of the world's origin. No matter how strong that monster is, he can't rely on his own will to destroy the will of the world. Once Tian Hui really uses the power of the world, this monster will be completely suppressed. If that's the case, it will be the opposite of what he wants. The power of the world's origin was indeed strong. This was why golden immortals, also known as the virtual king, were far superior to sky immortals and sky gods. Some golden immortals who have condensed powerful worlds don't even need to make a move. They can suppress a group of sky immortals with their own will. They rely on the will of the world's origin. As if to prove the validity of Lu Feng's words, the two people who were originally staring at each other in the arena moved. In the end, they still moved. However, it wasn't a powerful collision. The one who moved was the monster from the foreign continent. He only took a small step back. It was this step that let everyone know that he had failed. This monster had taken the initiative to use his aura to suppress Tian Hui. However, in the end, it was Tian Hui who had suppressed him. There was no doubt that he had failed in the domain he was most confident in. Such a blow was too great. This time, the monster's face was incomparably bleak. He almost couldn't believe everything that had happened before his eyes. Looking at Tian Hui, he had already lost any courage to continue fighting. He gently exhaled, and his voice slowly spread out. As expected of an emperor-level monster. As expected of an existence who has comprehended the power of the world at the true immortal realm. I am no match for you. He wasn't Tian Hui's match in the first place. That was why he had staked everything on this one throw. He had chosen to use his peak strength to defeat Tian Hui in the domain he was good at and make him lose his confidence in winning. In that case, he might have been able to fight for it. Unfortunately, he had failed. He had actually been defeated by Tian Hui in the domain he was best at. Such a blow was absolutely devastating. This had made him lose even the slightest bit of confidence in fighting. Therefore, when he failed, he chose to give up. Tian Hui had won. In many people's eyes, it was an inexplicable victory. If it weren't for the fact that those peak experts didn't say anything, many people would have shouted that there was a huge problem here, that there was something shady going on. After all, Tian Hui's victory was too simple. What he did was to stand there and look his opponent in the eye. Then, when his opponent took a step back, he actually gave up. This was simply too exaggerated. However, in the eyes of those who truly understood everything, this was normal. Naturally, they understood what Lu Feng had said about what he had seen. This battle didn't end the fastest, because there were a few battles where both sides gave it their all and used their strongest killing moves to end everything in an instant. However, although it wasn't the fastest, it was still one of the faster matches. Tian Hui walked out of the arena and returned to his seat. However, he only had eyes for Lu Feng. He completely ignored the greetings and gazes of the people beside him. As he walked, he only saw Lu Feng's direction. When they saw this scene, they vaguely understood that he was provoking them. He was mocking them. His meaning was very clear. He meant that he really had the strength to suppress everything, so he should show off. But what about you? What about you, Lu Feng? Lu Feng looked at Tian Hui and understood the meaning in his eyes. However, Lu Feng seemed to ignore all of this. Of course, this didn't mean that Lu Feng didn't dare to look at him. Lu Feng also looked at him. When Tian Hui stared at him, Lu Feng also looked at him. However, no other emotions could be seen on Lu Feng's face. He was incomparably calm. Tian Hui only smiled coldly at Lu Feng and didn't say anything. Then, he returned to his seat and waited for Lu Feng to enter the arena. Finally, the first round of the competition ended. At this time, the immortal King Lin Langtian appeared in the void again. He pointed at the arena and said, "Now, those who drew numbers 11 to 20, come up." The 10 people immediately stood up. And this time, countless existences were paying close attention to this matter once again. This time, Lu Feng stood up. Lu Feng's appearance caused everyone's eyes to widen as they took him seriously. Although Tian Hui was just sitting there quietly, everyone could see that he was faintly paying attention to Luo Yunyang. Is Lu Feng going to enter the arena too? This is going to be interesting. He and Tianhui have been at loggerheads ever since they arrived. Tianhui defeated his opponent without spilling a drop of blood. What will Lu Feng do? I'm looking forward to it. Everyone was discussing among themselves as they watched Lu Feng walk to the fourth arena. According to his standing position, they understood that Lu Feng should be number 17. However, just as these people were feeling sorry for number 18, they saw a figure appear. When they saw that figure, everyone fell silent. They swallowed the words they wanted to say and didn't say anything else. After seeing that person walk to the 18th seat, someone finally spoke up. These two are really unlucky. The other monstrous geniuses in the top 10 had a smooth journey, but the two of them only entered this place after clashing with other powerhouses. Now, they are going to meet in the competition for the top 25 out of 50. How sad. How sad. The clash between the new number 2 and the new number 4 is going to be interesting. Lu Feng was slightly taken aback when he saw his opponents. However, a peculiar smile soon appeared on his face. To be honest, these monstrous geniuses were just SOSO in Lu Feng's eyes. He simply couldn't concentrate fully on them. Even so, there were still two people among them that Lu Feng hoped to meet. Of these two people, the first was naturally Lu Feng's target, which was Tianhui. The second person was the person in front of him, the monstrous genius from the Upper Immortal Sect. The Upper Immortal Sect relied on squeezing the lives of countless people and deceiving them to produce faith power for cultivation. Lu Feng was sick of it. He even wanted to kill it. Unfortunately, this was the way the world was. He couldn't change anything. However, this didn't stop Lu Feng from wanting to teach them a lesson. After all, he, Lu Feng, had been asked to stay by them and sacrifice his life. He had even been sent to the Upper Immortal Sect to be refined into a human elixir. Lu Feng's smile baffled the disciple from the Upper Immortal Sect. He could sense that Lu Feng's attitude towards him was completely different from the others. After thinking about it, he still couldn't figure it out. In the end, he could only restrain his expression and look at Lu Feng quietly. As a monstrous genius, he was full of confidence, especially after defeating the monstrous genius from the Imperial Sky Sect who was ranked 5th. This had boosted his confidence even more. Although he had seen how terrifying Lu Feng was, he didn't think that he would definitely lose. After all, the power of sacrifice was an extremely mysterious aura. Lu Feng was an emperor-level monstrous genius. Being able to suppress him once meant that he would lose all the chances to fight in the future. He wouldn't hesitate to lose the chance to be ranked in the top few and make a name for himself. After all, the so-called quota was nothing to him. Therefore, he had already planned to suppress Lu Feng at the start of the battle. Even if he had to use the most extreme power of sacrifice, he had to suppress Lu Feng once. This way, when he tried to break through to a higher realm in the future, he would have a boost of morale. Just as he was waiting for the immortal King Lin Lang Heaven to announce the start of the battle, Lu Feng suddenly spoke. "You must have used a lot of power of sacrifice to reach this realm." The disciple from the Upper Immortal Sect was slightly taken aback. He nodded subconsciously. Lu Feng was the same. There was a faint glow in his eyes. How many people would be needed to gather such a huge amount of power of sacrifice? 1 million? 2 million? Or maybe 10 or 20 million? Lu Feng's voice became even colder. After hearing this, the disciple from the Upper Immortal Sect's face turned slightly gloomy. A dark aura appeared. Although this was indeed the case, although almost everyone knew that the cultivation method of the Upper Immortal Sect was built on the foundation of the deaths of countless living beings, it was really uncomfortable for someone to say it in such a public place, and in such a tone. "It's an honor for some ants to forge my path to invincibility." Lu Feng was still chuckling. "Yes, it's their honor. It's their honor. But you guys tricked them into sacrificing. And according to what you said, as long as they are ants, it should be an honor to be killed, right? If that's the case, then shouldn't you, who is an ant in my eyes, die too? The expressions of the upper immortal sect's disciples changed drastically. All the elders and disciples of the upper immortal sect, as well as the monstrous geniuses outside, and countless powerhouses in the audience, all changed their expressions. At this moment, although their thoughts were different, they all had the same opinion about Lu Feng. Lu Feng was too arrogant. He was really too arrogant. If he treated the fourth-ranked disciple as an ant, then what was Lu Feng? Even the first-ranked disciple, Tian Hui, was not qualified to say that. However, Lu Feng had said it just like that. This undoubtedly proved that he was really too arrogant. Arrogant! The upper immortal sect's disciple did not hesitate. He immediately said the same thing in everyone's hearts. At this moment, his power began to fully recover. It was the start of the most powerful awakening. Outside the arena, Tian Hui had already stood up. His eyes were filled with endless mockery. Lu Feng, you called a peak monstrous genius an ant. In that case, I want to see what your so-called strength is. I just said that if you don't have strength, don't come out and show off. If you do, you will only be humiliating yourself. Now that you said the same thing, I hope you are not talking about yourself. Chapter 890. Lu Feng turned sideways. He only glanced at Tian Hui before ignoring him. At this moment, he looked at the disciple from the upper immortal sect. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. His voice rang out clearly. I've said before that you're an ant. In my heart, you're an ant. Originally, I disdained to prove anything. But this time, I'll be old-fashioned. I'll prove it to those noisy people. The noisy people were obviously referring to Tian Hui. Therefore, this time, Tian Hui, who had a mocking smile on his face, turned gloomy once again. Lu Feng didn't look at him again. His eyes were already fixed on the demon from the upper immortal sect, whose aura was rising endlessly. Everyone knew that as long as they waited for the immortal king from Lin Langtian to announce the start of the battle, he would instantly unleash his shocking power and severely injure Lu Feng. As if he felt all the attention, a strange look flashed across the immortal king's face. He looked at the demon from the upper immortal sect and revealed a smile that no one could understand. Since you're all waiting for it to start, then let's start. He was an immortal king from Lin Langtian. Moreover, he was an immortal king from the Lin family of glittering jewel heaven. Therefore, there were some things that he knew. This immortal king understood that although Lu Feng might not be able to fight against Tian Hui, who had comprehended the power of the world, as the ultimate king, what else was there to be afraid of other than the power of the world? Although this demon from the upper immortal sect was really good, in front of the ultimate king, he was just an ant. Don't say that he's just a peak emperor-level demon. Even a true emperor-level demon is just an ant in front of the ultimate king. Therefore, what Lu Feng said is not wrong. It was destined that these people wouldn't know what he was thinking. Therefore, after announcing the start of the battle, he hid in the eternal void and quietly watched everything unfold. The demon from the upper immortal sect had completely sublimated and entered a kind of limit. Naturally, he knew how powerful Lu Feng was. Originally, he had planned to go all out. Moreover, after being ridiculed by Lu Feng, he was ready to risk everything. Therefore, the power he gathered this time was really powerful, incomparably powerful. Sacrifice. My strength, my body, my soul, my life. Sacrifice. This was the power of sacrifice. Sacrificing all power to refine it into one, to become eternal, to become a supreme power at the pinnacle. In an instant it was just an ordinary supreme power. But now it had become a true pinnacle supreme power. The power of this moment made everyone's expression change drastically. The power of sacrifice is truly too powerful. It's truly outrageous. After sacrificing his own body, although he had to pay a great price, what he obtained was the pinnacle of origin true essence. When used, it's enough to make the world tremble. Powerful fluctuations of power annihilated Lu Feng. However, in the face of this, Lu Feng was calm and indifferent. He didn't even move. In front of him was a power that was comparable to a pinnacle celestial immortal. It was definitely the most invincible peak below the golden immortal realm. However, such power didn't matter in Lu Feng's eyes. It didn't matter at all. Therefore, he just watched and waited. These people's expressions changed drastically. Many of them looked at Lu Feng with gloating expressions. They seemed to be able to see the scene of Lu Feng being hit and suppressed. Although these people didn't like the upper immortal sect, and could even be said to hate it, they were extremely disgusted with Lu Feng. This was because Lu Feng had been too arrogant just now. If he had the strength of a high-level true immortal now, if he really had the strength to crush others, perhaps no one would care about what he said. But now, he didn't. Lu Feng didn't have any. However, he described the upper immortal sex monster as an ant. One had to know that most of the people here were far inferior to the upper immortal sex monster. Therefore, Lu Feng's words could be said to have offended everyone. Therefore, although they didn't like the upper immortal sex monster, they hoped that Lu Feng would be taught a lesson and receive the punishment he deserved. A powerful attack appeared directly in front of Lu Feng, leaving Lu Feng no time to react. However, this was only what the crowd thought. Lu Feng didn't care about this at all. In the face of such a murderous attack, all he did was to raise his arm and erupt. Erupt, really, completely erupt. His aura surged through the world. If the upper immortal sex monster's aura could shake the world, then Lu Feng's aura could directly destroy an epoch of space-time. The two of them weren't on the same level at all. Horror, endless horror. Countless existences were filled with endless horror. They looked at Lu Feng and couldn't imagine how he did it. In the past, Lu Feng had also displayed a shocking aura. However, compared to now, that aura was still lacking. Could it be that back then, wasn't that his aura at its peak? This Lu Feng, what kind of terrifying monster is he? How could he do it to such an extent? This couldn't be described with the word horrifying. After the aura erupted, heaven and earth shook. The entire void arena was shaking as if it was going to collapse at any time. Countless existences roared. They couldn't believe that this aura could be triggered by an existence who wasn't even a true immortal. In the void, facing the upper immortal sex monster, Lu Feng finally made his move. One punch, and it was a simple punch. Until now, no matter who the opponent was, what kind of person they were, how powerful they were, Lu Feng had always faced them with one punch. It was all because of that punch that was washed clean. However, this time, Lu Feng's punch no longer had that feeling of being washed clean. This time, his punch was completely luxurious to the extreme. It was as if Lu Feng had given up that feeling of being washed clean. What he chose was to use the most gorgeous blow to completely suppress his opponent. Collision, it was really the most extreme collision. It was directly the most extreme collision in the void. Endless vibrations were produced. The huge force produced by this collision was comparable to the collision of any golden immortal. There was no doubt that such a scene was terrifying and shocking. However, the moment after the collision, a figure flew out and fell directly onto the arena. Seeing that figure, everyone fell silent. Because that figure was sent flying by a punch, no matter how reasonable it was also unexpected. When Lu Feng displayed such a powerful and abnormal strength at the last moment, everyone already knew that Lu Feng's strength was really not a boast. He had said those words not because of his arrogance, but because of his confidence. Just like that, Lu Feng, who had completed all the blessings in the void, stood quietly at the peak of the arena. He looked down at the demon from the upper immortal sect, who was struggling to get up from the arena. His eyes were filled with an endless cold light. I've said it before. In my eyes, you are actually just an ant. When Lu Feng said this, no one could refute him anymore. This was because Lu Feng had already proven the truth of his words with his actual combat strength. The demon from the upper immortal sect finally stood up completely. At this moment, he looked at Lu Feng with an expression that Lu Feng also recognized. This was called madness. Looking at Lu Feng, the demon's voice finally resounded between heaven and earth. Lu Feng, you are indeed very strong. However, you are also arrogant. The power of sacrifice is simply not something you can imagine. Its greatness surpasses anything. Just now, you were actually the closest to victory. However, you didn't grasp the opportunity. In order to humiliate me, you didn't use that attack to completely suppress me. This is your mistake. I'll show you who's the real ant, and who's the real sorrowful existence. Vaguely, his body started to turn illusory. An even more powerful energy surged and burned continuously. Many people who knew what was going on could see that the demon from the upper immortal sect had really gone crazy. In order to win, he had even started to burn his life force. One had to admit that the power of sacrifice was really a terrifying and powerful force. Once one sacrificed one's life force, the power obtained was really too terrifying. After sacrificing so much life force, it could be said that he was now much stronger than his previous limit. Finally, all the burning was completed. He was once again suspended in midair. At this moment, the demon from the upper immortal sect was looking at Lu Feng ferociously. Lu Feng, I have to say that you are really arrogant. You actually chose to see me complete all my perseverance and reach the peak of my life. I really don't know what you are thinking. Lu Feng did not say anything. He looked at the demon from the upper immortal sect, who was now even stronger than before. However, he did not seem to feel anything. It was as if he was just looking at a clown. An even more powerful killing intent appeared. A power that could be said to be heaven-defying appeared. Faintly, space was shaken, and time was precipitated. It made people feel an indescribable sense of terror. However, in the face of this, Lu Feng was still the same as before. He was still incomparably calm. In the next moment, in the face of this invincible aura, Lu Feng actually turned his head. He actually looked at the side, at Tian Hui, who had already stood up from his seat. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. There was a faint smile in his eyes. Before the demon from the upper immortal sect reached him, his voice had already spread throughout the world. Tian Hui, in this world, there are still people who can make me want to fight. However, there are only a few of them. Unfortunately, this has nothing to do with you, Tian Hui. When facing you, I don't have the urge to fight at all. It's not because you are too strong, it's just because you don't have the right. Chapter 891. Up until now, when he was about to face a world-shocking massacre, Lu Feng still chose to ignore it and provoke it. He looked at Tian Hui provocatively, ignoring the terrifying attack of the monstrous geniuses from the supreme immortal sect. One had to admit that such arrogance was something that these people couldn't do. At least, these people couldn't be compared to him. This was Lu Feng. This is the arrogance of an emperor. This is the terror of an emperor. The emperor of the past was able to become the pinnacle existence among the 5 ultimate kings. The current emperor is far more arrogant than the former emperor. I just don't know how strong he is. Venerable immortal Lin Long was hidden in the void, filled with endless majesty. Beside her, the immortal venerable of Lang family was also quietly watching the battle. Originally, it was impossible for the 2 immortal venerables to pay attention to such a battle between monstrous geniuses. One should know that venerable immortal Lin Long was a true invincible immortal venerable, the strongest immortal venerable in the perfect immortal realm. But at this moment, they were here, quietly watching the battle. Of course, the most important reason was Lu Feng. They had only come here for Lu Feng, the ultimate king of this world. He's the ultimate king, the new emperor. Although he has reached the level of the ultimate king, he's still a lot weaker than the other ultimate kings. After all, he doesn't have the accumulation of those years. Venerable Immortal Lin Long was silent for a moment, but after a while, she gently shook her head. That might not be the case. After all, apart from being the new emperor, Lu Feng is also the descendant of that great existence. Thinking of that terrifying existence, the two of them fell into silence, an endless silence. Although they were much older than the human king Liu Bei, it was only in terms of age. Compared to Liu Bei, the difference between them and him was simply too great. Human King Liu Bei, what kind of terrifying and mighty existence was that? He was far from what they could compare to or contend against. At this moment, the only thing they could do was to remain silent, an endless silence in the arena. Lu Feng's eyes were cold. Apart from the cold glint in his eyes, there was also a hint of mockery. He didn't even look at the final attack of the monstrous genius from the immortal sect. Just like that, in front of everyone's eyes, that powerful attack descended upon them, the terrifying trembling of the heavens and earth, and the shattering of time and space. The entire time and space was slightly shattered, countless cracks appeared, filling the space between the heavens and earth. The powerful impact caused the protective force of the arena to tremble. At the sight of this, many existences revealed a look of horror. One to know that the protective force of the arena to protect the immortal sect. Immortal king, even a peak Hunyuan golden immortal. However, at that moment the collision between the two of them had actually caused the protective barrier to sway. Such a scene truly astonished the crowd. Too, because a figure fell heavily onto the arena. His appearance was extremely miserable, and he had already fainted. Everyone knew that this was the monstrous genius from the immortal sect who swore to completely suppress Lu Feng and blame Lu Feng for being merciful. At this moment, he was really incomparably miserable and sorrowful. In the collision with Lu Feng, no matter how much he sacrificed, no matter how much power he used, he couldn't resist Lu Feng's strength. In an instant, he was completely suppressed. It was a true suppression, there was no other way to suppress him. This was a tragedy, a great tragedy. It's not that this monstrous genius from the immortal sect is too weak. It's that his opponent is simply an unbeatable existence. No one below the golden immortal realm can contend against him. How sad, how sad! I'm afraid only Tian Hui, who has comprehended the power of the world, can truly contend against him. If Tian Hui didn't comprehend the power of the world, he would be far from being a match for this monstrous genius. It's really hard to imagine. They are both emperor-level monstrous geniuses, but why is the gap between them so huge? They were both emperor-level monstrous geniuses, but Tian Hui was 2 levels stronger than Lu Feng. In everyone's opinion, he wasn't a match for Lu Feng. Lu Feng's strength was obvious. The gap between them was obvious. Tian Hui's expression was extremely gloomy. Lu Feng had said such words at such a time. If he had been suppressed, then Lu Feng would have been mocked for the rest of his life. But now, he had really done it. Furthermore, he had done it so effortlessly and powerfully. This made Tian Hui feel a little uncomfortable. After all, he had just mocked Lu Feng and called him an ignorant person. In the end, after taking a deep look at Lu Feng, Tian Hui returned to his original seat. Lu Feng had won. He had won easily and powerfully. Therefore, he returned to his seat. When he returned, countless people's eyes were filled with fear. They had naturally sensed Lu Feng's terrifying extreme strength. This was far beyond what they could contend against. This represented the peak of this level of invincibility. Therefore, Lu Feng had already been eliminated from the list of people they wanted to fight. He sat quietly in his seat and waited for the rest of the battle to end. Lu Feng didn't even care about this battle, let alone the peak. Even though he had unleashed his aura, Lu Feng didn't display it. Such a battle might have been a magnificent and powerful battle for others, but it was useless for Lu Feng. If he hadn't wanted to ruthlessly teach Tian Hui a lesson in front of tens of thousands of people and countless existences, Lu Feng wouldn't have participated in such a meaningless battle. After all, it would have been better for him to directly improve his own strength instead of wasting time on these useless battles. After a long time, the battle finally ended. Another 5 people failed, and another 5 advanced. At this time, the third group also went up. As for the battles that followed, although everyone was still watching them with great interest, there wasn't much excitement left. This was because in their eyes, such a battle was just for show. It was just a little more magnificent. There was really nothing else. Finally, all the battles were over. At this moment, there were 25 existences sitting quietly in the arena. However, among them, except for a limited number of people, the rest were pale or trembling slightly. Although they had won the battle, the price they had paid was also not cheap. There were only a few people who could win in such a domineering manner. Staring at the remaining demon-level geniuses, the immortal kings of the Lin Langtian immortal realms appeared as a complicated look appeared in their eyes. In the next moment, he directly waved his arm again. At this moment, another 25 small balls appeared and were distributed in the hands of these people. One person will be free. The rest will proceed according to the normal battle order. Number 1 to 10. Enter the arena and fight according to your number. The last person would be the one who would be free. There was no doubt that the monster who had obtained the number 25 had a look of joy on his face. In the previous battle, he had suffered endless injuries. To be able to have more time to recover, this was really the best thing for him. Of course, he was happy, but there were a few people who had ugly expressions on their faces. This was because among the top 10 existences who had entered the arena this time, there were not only 2 monsters who were truly in the top 10, but there was also an opponent that no one wanted to face. That was Lu Feng. Lu Feng stood on the 5th arena, waiting for his opponent to arrive. However, when everyone was ready to start, number 6 still didn't enter. In fact, when they saw this scene, many existences understood. Although it was a pity that such a battle had disappeared, they all understood that if they were in his shoes, they would have made the same choice. This Lu Feng is really too strong. Choosing to give up in the face of him is actually a wise decision. Everyone understood that the monster had chosen to give up. He had chosen to give up the battle. As for his choice, everyone could understand. After all, Lu Feng's strength was really too strong. This wasn't something that they should fight against at their level. Therefore, it was reasonable for them to give up. The battle ended very quickly. Lu Feng's opponent chose to give up, so Lu Feng entered the next round just like that. He returned to his seat. He didn't look at anyone and just waited quietly. Just like that, after a very simple battle, it was over. Everything was over. At this time, only the 13 monsters were still sitting quietly on the spectator's stand. Without a doubt, these 13 monsters represented the pinnacle of the Yellow Spring continent. Although they might not be in the top 13, they were enough to become the idols of the entire Yellow Spring continent's younger generation. Many of the monsters couldn't hide the joy on their faces. After all, they were still inferior to those almighty existences. They could ignore many things and hide their feelings completely. Of course, the only one who didn't show any expression was Lu Feng. Even Tian Hui felt a slight excitement. Seeing Lu Feng's indifference, many people felt that it was inconceivable. After all, even if Lu Feng didn't care about this glory, he shouldn't be so calm. They really didn't understand Lu Feng. Perhaps in the past, he would feel excited and proud. But now, after going through so much, Lu Feng really didn't care. One had to know that those who fell in his hands weren't just monsters and geniuses. Among them, there were also many experts. Those he killed included the Divine King, an immortal king, and even an immortal venerable. How could Lu Feng, who had killed such an existence, care about these people? Therefore, he was very indifferent. He was really calm and indifferent from the bottom of his heart. Looking at Lu Feng's expression, the two immortal venerables hidden in the void nodded slightly. At least in terms of appearance, this Lu Feng is very much in line with the performance of the final king. I just don't know if he's deliberately pretending, or if he's really so calm. Silence. After an endless period of silence, the atmosphere of the crowd gradually began to gather, and they began to boil. This was because they knew that the real battle between the 13 of them was about to begin. And this time, it would be a real collision, a collision without any omissions. Sure enough, in the next moment, Lin Lang Tian's immortal king announced the rules of the competition. The next battle will be the real time to test you. You will collide with each other. Everyone will collide with each other, and according to the result of the battle, the final result will be decided. In this way, there won't be anyone lucky enough to get the last 5 places. Chapter 892. Indeed, each of them would encounter each other once. This would eliminate the possibility of being lucky enough to enter the top 5. And this was the time for the real test. Everyone's eyes were cautious and filled with fighting spirit. However, when they saw the two of them, they all fell silent. These two people were Lu Feng and Tian Hui. Many existences understood that these two people were not people they could contend against. They were not people they could fight against, because these two people represented the true invincible realm. They were the most invincible in this stage. After these two people fight, the first place will be decided. Whoever wins will be the final champion. In fact, many people had already given up the idea of fighting these two people. After all, these two people were too strong. There was no chance of winning against them. Moreover, after fighting with them, they would probably be severely injured. As a result, they would not be able to continue fighting. In that case, the loss would outweigh the gain. Therefore, at this moment, these people had already made up their mind. Once they encountered these two people, they would give up. Of course, this was not just a plan, because this was the reality. When they encountered Lu Feng and Tian Hui, everyone chose to give up. Just like this, a very strange scene appeared. Lu Feng and Tian Hui did not fight, but they had already become the top 2 existences. They were the real top 2. At this time, many people looked at the competition around them and did not feel much, because they were all looking forward to the final moment, to the real, final showdown. The Battle of Two Emperors. This will be a rare battle of 2 emperors in history. I just don't know who will win. Lu Feng is indeed terrifying to the extreme. Unfortunately, his realm is too low. He is only a peak immortal. If he is at the same level as Tian Hui, which is also a mid-level true immortal, then I believe that Lu Feng will be the winner. But now it was hard to say. Of course, this was already considered pretty good. Before Lu Feng clashed with the demon from the immortal sect, everyone thought that it was impossible for Lu Feng to win. After all, Tian Hui's existence had already proven that he had comprehended the power of the world. The existence of the power of the world completely suppressed those who had comprehended the power of the world. This sort of situation was not a joke. Instead, it was the truth. Everyone was really looking forward to the real collision. Everyone took a deep breath. When the last battle ended and the 3rd to 13th appeared, everyone took a deep breath. Because they knew that the true essence of this battle, the true most extreme confrontation, was about to appear. Lu Feng quietly stood up from his seat. From the start of this duel, he had been sitting here quietly, waiting for the final moment to arrive. And now it had finally arrived. The corners of Lu Feng's mouth curved slightly. When he turned back to look at Tian Hui, who was slowly walking down, Tian Hui was also looking at Lu Feng with a strange smile. This small scene could be hidden from ordinary people, but for the experts it was very clear. Their hearts began to tremble. These people understood that the truly shocking duel, the one they had been looking forward to for countless years, was finally about to begin. The 5 arenas in the void had disappeared, replaced by an incomparably vast and terrifying platform. There were traces of history on it, as if it had been a platform for a long time. Seeing its appearance, many people had strange looks in their eyes. As expected, it's this ancient battle platform. In the past, there were countless truly shocking duels on this platform. The blood of hundreds of millions of demons was stained on this platform. Although Tian Hui and Lu Feng are only ordinary cultivators, not even at the golden immortal realm, their aptitude is too heaven-defying. They are already qualified to be here. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing a truly crazy battle on this ancient battle platform. Countless people were looking forward to it. With a light step, Lu Feng directly arrived at the battle platform in the air. His eyes were still as calm as ever, as though even the changes in the world couldn't affect him in the slightest. This was Lu Feng. In the primal universe, he was known as an invincible demon. He was the one who could suppress young human kings and become the #1 in the universe since the beginning of time, Lu Feng. At this moment, on this brand new stage, in this strange universe, he would show Lu Feng's unparalleled peerlessness. On the opposite side, Tian Hui had also entered. In an instant, heaven and earth were silent. Countless existences held their breaths, waiting for the real battle to begin. Tian Hui looked at Lu Feng, and the coldness at the corner of his mouth did not disappear. He did not care to say anything because, in his opinion, Lu Feng was already doomed to lose. Although he couldn't and didn't dare to kill Lu Feng, suppressing him and humiliating him was still a piece of cake. Although he did not want to admit it, Tian Hui had to realize that if he wanted to suppress Lu Feng, defeat Lu Feng, and humiliate Lu Feng, this was his only chance. He was not an idiot. Although he had previously said that Lu Feng was the same as him, that they were both in the category of emperor-level demons, and that they were both existences on the same level. However, he knew in his heart that he really could not compare to Lu Feng. Now, his only advantage was that he had comprehended the power of the world. This was the key to his strength compared to Lu Feng. It could even be said that this was the key to determining the outcome of the battle. After waiting for a period of time, waiting for Lu Feng to also enter the true immortal realm, he believed that with the heaven-defying performance that Lu Feng had displayed, it should not be a problem for him to comprehend the power of the world. At that time, the key to determining the outcome of the battle would no longer exist. He was afraid that he would no longer have the opportunity and strength to suppress Lu Feng. Therefore, this was his only chance. To be able to suppress such a monstrous genius at the Emperor level, this will be of unimaginable help to my future progress. Therefore, this time, I must win, and I must win with the greatest strength. Time passed slowly. The two of them looked at each other quietly. From beginning to end, they did not say anything, and nothing else appeared. At this time, the immortal king expert in charge of maintaining everything also understood that there was really no need to say anything more between the two of them. Therefore, with incomparably complicated eyes, he announced the start of the battle. The battle had begun. Everyone was silent. Even the two immortal venerables hidden in the void, including immortal venerable Lin Long, were completely silent. They were waiting. It could even be said that they were looking forward to it. The battle had begun. However, the way the battle began disappointed everyone, but it was a pleasant surprise to those demons. Because at this moment the two of them were actually having a battle of wills, just like Tian Hui and that demon from the foreign continent. Both of their wills were true wills, and both of them were truly invincible wills. The moment they collided, it was instantly produced. two unimaginably powerful auras were born directly in the void, and then they began to madly and violently collide. The entire ring shuddered slightly, causing the color of the entire place to change. What a terrifying battle of wills! Both of them are truly unparalleled and terrifying existences. Their wills are truly incomparably shocking and trembling. I'm afraid that the existence of their wills alone is enough to easily suppress a sky immortal. Sky immortals were the existences of heavenly gods in the original universe. However, at this moment, Lu Feng and Tian Hui could easily suppress sky immortals and heavenly gods with their own auras. Such a scene was, of course, worthy of the word shocking. At the place where the auras collided, countless space-time cracks appeared. When these people looked at the two of them, they were slightly stunned. This was because they realized that something was not right. At this moment, Tian Hui's expression was slightly ugly. Everyone understood that he had already used an extremely powerful force. And after using such a powerful force and releasing such a terrifying aura, it was only natural that his expression would be ugly. But what about Lu Feng? Lu Feng's performance was a little too indifferent. Lu Feng was simply so indifferent that it made one's hair stand on end. Now, he was actually still standing in the same place so quietly, as if he was not the one who had collided. His existence was just that of a spectator's. This was simply an indifference that was unimaginable. Lu Feng quietly looked at Tian Hui, who had used all his strength but was still unable to suppress him. Finally, he smiled. Tian Hui, you once said that if you are not strong enough, don't show off. Back then, I also gave these to you. Back then, you didn't believe me. You didn't want to believe me. Now I'll say it again. In my eyes, you are just an ant. You are just an ant. An ant should have the awareness of an ant. If you are not strong enough, don't show off. You will be easily suppressed by others. The moment his voice fell, Lu Feng's aura became stronger again. This time, it actually made Tian Hui take a hard step back. Although it was only a single step, this single step allowed everyone to understand what was going on. Lu Feng had become strong. Tian Hui had failed. Tian Hui was no match for Lu Feng. At the very least, in terms of aura, he was no match for Lu Feng. His expression was extremely gloomy. Tian Hui was really shaken by Lu Feng's humiliation. Since you have made this choice, I won't hold anything back. Actually, I know and understand. You did all this and said all this to help Lin Yu. You helped him humiliate me. It's just that your thinking is too simple. Lu Feng, I am an emperor-level evildoer. How can I be suppressed so easily by you? You think too simply. Actually, his trump card had already been known by others. Furthermore, he, Tian Hui, had never intended to hide it. Therefore, at this moment, the will of the realm had appeared. It was as if a huge realm had been born in the void. Under its might, it directly tore the void apart, causing the sky and earth to turn dark. Everyone who saw this scene took a deep breath. Although they had already known this outcome and heard these rumors, when they saw it for themselves, they still couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. They couldn't help but sigh in amazement. A realm, this is indeed a realm. Tian Hui is really amazing. He actually comprehended the existence of a realm at the perfected, immortal realm. Lu Feng is going to be miserable. This time, Lu Feng was really going to be miserable. It was really going to be very dismal. It wasn't just these ordinary people. Even the evildoers and powerhouses thought the same. They thought that Lu Feng was really going to be miserable. Chapter 893. But is Lu Feng really sad? Is Lu Feng really sad? No, no, no. How could he, Lu Feng, be suppressed by Tian Hui's imposing manner? Vaguely, the crowd saw 6 rays of light filled with endless qi of origin appearing behind Lu Feng's back. In an instant, everyone was completely dumbfounded. This. True essence of origin. These are all true essences of origin. Lu Feng, this Lu Feng, how is it possible? How can he comprehend so many true essences of origin at such a young age? 6 kinds. A total of 6 kinds of true essences of origin. Apart from the peak true essence, all of them are infinite true essences that have surpassed the peak true essence. Any monstrous genius can be called an invincible monstrous genius after obtaining 2 of them. How can he comprehend 6? This was no longer something that could be described with the word astonishment. At this moment it was everyone who was shocked. Everyone. Even Venerable Lin Long couldn't suppress her trembling heart at this moment. He knew that Lu Feng was strong, Lu Feng was terrifying, and he knew that Lu Feng was confident in himself. However, he had never thought that Lu Feng could achieve such a feat. He actually had such a shocking secret. 6 kinds of true essences of origin, 2 peak true essences of origin, and 4 true essences that have surpassed the peak true essence. This is equivalent to 9 or even 10 kinds of true essences of origin. An emperor, is this the terror of an emperor? Is this the glory of an emperor? It's really too shocking. At this moment, all they could do was exclaim, feel helpless, and express their feelings. They had never thought of such a scene before. What they saw this time had subverted their understanding. Lu Feng's aura was still rising, and there was no end to it. Finally, an invincible phenomenon appeared behind his back. This was an endless great devil tearing apart the era of time. This was a phantom that pierced through the great devil, an eternal supreme that slowly walked out from the river of time. The arch phenomenon. At this moment, Lu Feng began to use his peak strength, because he could already feel the surging power in his body. He wanted to use this battle to elevate himself to a higher level, to allow himself to enter a brand new realm. Finally, when Lu Feng had gathered all of his power, Tianhui's world turned into nothingness. It was suppressed and collapsed, quietly standing at the peak of heaven. Lu Feng allowed these powers to strengthen him, easily surpassing everything and directly entering an unimaginable domain. This is the aura of a golden immortal. This Lu Feng was actually augmented by a golden immortal. In fact, he is at least a 3rd-tier gold immortal. How did he do it? His cultivation base is only at the peak of the immortal realm, but at this moment, he has skipped the true immortal and heavenly immortal realm and entered the golden immortal realm. He is even equivalent to a high-level golden immortal. Is there any justice in this increase? Venerable Lin Long was dumbfounded. At the next moment, she gently, deeply and heavily took in a deep breath. Emperor! This is the true emperor. No wonder he's so strong and doesn't put anyone in his eyes. No wonder he can sweep away everything and have such confidence. It turns out that all of this stems from strength. The current emperor and the bloodline inheritance of that heaven-defying existence. This has made Lu Feng, the Emperor Lu Feng, unprecedented. Compared to those ancient existences, those existences that have transcended the era, he's even stronger. This was Lu Feng, the peak of Lu Feng. Tianhui had never thought that Lu Feng would be so extreme. Even the existence of the world couldn't compare with Lu Feng in terms of aura. In fact, they were far from being comparable. Gradually, some people finally came to their senses. They had thought it through, They now knew what kind of existence Lu Feng was. Which one is this Lu Feng? Many people asked the same question. They had already guessed it. After crossing so many levels, this Lu Feng is not an emperor-level monstrous genius at all. To think that we still imagine that this Lu Feng is the peak of the emperor-level monstrous genius. He is not an emperor-level monstrous genius. His true identity should be the ultimate king. They are the 5 ultimate kings who have transcended eras and epochs. Which one is he? Which ultimate king is he? Apart from the ultimate king, The crowd really couldn't think of anyone else who could rise so many levels, enter such a level, and reach such an extreme level. In an instant, many people understood Lu Feng's arrogance. Indeed, as the invincible ultimate king, in his eyes, even the true emperor-level monstrous geniuses were all ants. As for people like Tianhui, who had relied on other methods to become an emperor-level monstrous genius, he didn't even put them in his eyes. Tianhui took a deep breath softly. The look in his eyes was indescribable. How could you be such an existence?" he murmured, trembling with emotion. No matter how much he thought, no matter how confident he was, when he found out that his opponent was the greatest existence in history, Tianhui couldn't help but tremble in his heart. He really didn't expect Lin Yu to have a friend who was the ultimate king. This was completely unimaginable. After a moment of silence, he let out a long breath. There was an indescribably complicated look in his eyes. Finally, he looked at Lu Feng. "The ultimate king, this battle is really interesting. I didn't expect that I would have the chance to suppress a ultimate king in my lifetime. This is really unimaginable." Lu Feng looked at him quietly, still with that cold sneer. He knew that Tianhui had comprehended the power of the world. He had already shown it just now. He wanted to use his own power of the world to suppress him. This might be what Tianhui was relying on or what he was thinking. Unfortunately, Lu Feng wasn't just anyone. How could he compromise so easily and be completely suppressed? Everything was a joke, a complete joke. Lu Feng just slowly raised his arm. "Since you have such a plan, since you have such confidence, then let's fight. Let me see what you have to show off, what strength you have to show off. If you don't have the strength, then don't act so recklessly and show off how strong you are." After hearing Lu Feng's words, Tianhui didn't mock him in the same way. This was because he knew that the ultimate king looked down on him and treated him like an ant. It was only right. However, he would prove his strength. "Shake my power." Boundless aura rose and permeated the world. In an instant, the strongest power had appeared, covering the endless sky. At this moment, Tianhui was like a god in the legends that had walked out of the mortal world, with unpredictable and unparalleled power. However, such an existence was really nothing to Lu Feng. This was because without the existence of the power of the world, Tianhui was nothing at all. His aura rose and he directly became a golden immortal. According to his level, he could indeed reach the level of a sky immortal. "Bloom, my final hope." The final hope was the power of the world, the power of the world. Behind Tianhui, a terrifying light appeared. In an instant, this terrifying light transformed into a gigantic shadow. It was incomparably terrifying, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. This illusion didn't last long before it completely transformed into a real entity. Many people knew that this was the real world that covered the sky and earth. Tianhui was actually this terrifying. Not only did he comprehend the power of the world, but he also condensed the existence of the world. This is something that only a true sky immortal can do. This Tianhui is definitely not an ordinary person. With Lu Feng's existence, no one could say that he was a genius anymore. Because what Lu Feng had said before was right. In front of the final king, in front of him, all existences were nothing. They were all ants. Therefore, in everyone's hearts, Tianhui could only be said to be extraordinary. With the support of Tianhui and the flickering light, there was really a special feeling within. The power of the great realm poured into Tianhui's body in an instant. His entire body was filled with the true essence of the world. Looking at Lu Feng, Tianhui's voice rang out at this moment. "Emperor, the first true essence I comprehended was the true essence of darkness. It turned nightless into eternal night and caused the era to fall completely. The second true essence I comprehended was the mutated true essence of origin. This is the true essence of the world that you saw. Therefore, I was only a mid-level true immortal and I was able to condense the world. It can be said that even the most heaven-defying sky immortal's combat strength is a pitiful ant in front of me. Once I activate the world, I can easily suppress it. It's just that I didn't expect it. After I condensed the world, the first one to be suppressed was you. You're actually the ultimate king. Fate is really mysterious. Suppressing the ultimate king would definitely bring unimaginable benefits to him in the future. Therefore, Tianhui was extremely excited. In an instant, a terrifying power descended. It bloomed directly in front of Lu Feng, as if it wanted to completely obliterate Lu Feng. Lu Feng was blessed with 6 supreme powers and an invincible vision. His power reached the 3rd level of Golden Immortal. The power of the ultimate king was instantly revealed. Unfortunately, he did not use his strongest combat body. He was still not at his peak. Without the power of the world, even if he had the power of a 3rd level Golden Immortal, it was still lacking. The world descended, instantly shattering Lu Feng's countless visions and sending Lu Feng flying for a long time. Seeing this scene, everyone fell silent, their hearts trembling endlessly. They could not help but marvel at the terror of the power of the world. Even if it's 2 whole levels higher, it's still not enough. But Lu Feng did not have any power to resist it. This is the power of the world. Such power is not something that a living being should be able to control. Only a Golden Immortal is qualified to use it. Everyone knew the power of the world. But when they saw the power of the world, they could not help but tremble. I wonder what Lu Feng can do this time. What can Lu Feng do? Chapter 894. At this moment, those from the Moon Howl sect thought so too. The world condensed by Tianhui was indeed spectacular, no different from a normal world condensed by a gold immortal. However, they understood that this was not enough, far from enough. Because back then, Lu Feng had condensed an even more powerful world in their Moon Howl sect. Compared to the world condensed by Tianhui, it was more than 10 times or 100 times bigger. If Lu Feng hadn't destroyed that world back then and integrated it into his own body, he would have been able to easily crush Tianhui's world and suppress Tianhui just by relying on the existence of that unprecedented world. And after integrating it into his body, Lu Feng was even more terrifying. Everyone believed that as long as he unleashed that invincible body, he could easily crush everything. Because what Lu Feng represented, every strike of his contained a kind of true invincible power, the power of the entire world. Everyone paid attention to Lu Feng, looking forward to what shocking things he could do. After all, the words ultimate king represented too great. Lu Feng, who was sent flying far away, finally had a kind of light in his eyes. That was a kind of light that fused with madness and invincibility. Lu Feng had really made up his mind. He had really gone crazy. Who said that I can't win without the power of the world? I, Lu Feng, have never failed, and this time I won't fail either. Slaughter, continue to slaughter. Lu Feng never knew what failure was, so he once again went on a killing rampage. Heaven and earth roared, time trembled, time rotated, and the earth shattered. Lu Feng displayed a shocking vision. In the next moment, the great Emperor vision merged completely with Lu Feng, which made Lu Feng a 1,000 feet tall giant. With a raise of his hand, he could pluck the stars, the sun, and the moon. The power was unparalleled, towering above the heavens. At this time, Lu Feng chose to fight for real. He did not use any battle body, nor did he summon the second primordial spirit. He wanted to use the strength of this warrior and the most powerful phenomenon to fight against the world. Even if the whole world wants to stop me, I still won't compromise. Because I can go against the entire world. This was Lu Feng. Whatever he thought in his heart, the world had to retreat. He punched out, shattering the stars. He actually punched a huge hole in the world. Countless people were shocked. This was a world as a whole. However, Lu Feng was still able to unleash such power. This gave everyone a whole new perspective on his combat strength. However, this was not the end. This was far from the end. Because in the next moment, Lu Feng arrived even more crazily. He had actually directly entered the world. In this world, Tianhui is the eternal god, but Lu Feng actually chose to enter his world. This is to use the power of mortals to fight against the world, to fight against the gods of myths. This was Lu Feng's plan. He did not know what retreat was, nor did he know what danger was. All he knew was that he was the strongest. After entering the world through the huge hole, Lu Feng's craziness became even more obvious. Tianhui, who was in the world, was also slightly stunned. He had never thought that Lu Feng would actually choose such a path and directly charge into his world to fight against him. However, in the face of such a situation, Tianhui was excited. It could even be said that he was excited. This was because he could finally display power that surpassed everything in his own world. Lu Feng, your arrogance will be the fuse of your failure. This time, the fact that the ultimate king is undefeated will be shattered in his own world. He was the eternal god. Therefore, he could easily transform into countless existences. Yes, he could be so strong that there was no solution. Supported by the power of the world, Tianhui also transformed into a 10,000-foot tall giant. He chose to clash with Lu Feng to the limit. The confrontation between their fists stirred up a huge amount of dust and made the whole world shake. However, everyone knew that as long as Tianhui did not die, this world would still be restored. In this world, he was the god of creation and creation. Tianhui, who was supported by the power of the world, was bound to be incomparably strong. However, Lu Feng actually showed that he was not weaker than anyone else. When the two sides collided, a strange scene occurred. Lu Feng was pushed back 10,000 miles, while Tianhui was pushed back 100,000 miles. The result of this collision left everyone dumbfounded. They had never imagined that Lu Feng's strength would actually gain the upper hand and actually make Tianhui lose once. In the world of gods, an existence that challenged the gods actually repelled the god. This Lu Feng is indeed worthy of his terrifying title as the ultimate king. Taking a deep breath, everyone had the same reaction. However, in the next moment they started to pay attention again. Because in the next moment, an even stronger collision occurred. Tianhui had already sensed Lu Feng's extreme strength, so he didn't hesitate and chose another type of buff, a buff that weakened Lu Feng. He was using the power of the whole world to restrict Lu Feng, making Lu Feng continuously retreat and weaken. However, Lu Feng did not know what it meant to give up, nor did he know what it meant to retreat. What he chose was still the greatest collision. He was withstanding the suppression of an entire world to show his eternal greatness. Tianhui could feel Lu Feng's current state. This was a kind of selflessness, a kind of extreme, a kind of sure win state. His heart was actually trembling, and he actually had a feeling that he couldn't fight against it. In his own world, in the world of a supreme god, he actually had such a feeling. This was undoubtedly a disgrace, and it made Tianhui feel sad. Therefore, he once again used his trump card, his most powerful trump card. Darkness, sink into oblivion. The power of the true essence of darkness appeared and bloomed between heaven and earth, devouring everything and annihilating Lu Feng's body. Everyone could vaguely see the great figure about to sink into oblivion in the darkness. They saw the extreme path and madness. Kill, kill, kill. He bore the weight of the whole world's darkness, but his heart was filled with endless light. In my eyes, what is the difference between light and darkness? When I open my eyes, what is the difference between heaven and earth? I am the Emperor Lu Feng. I will never sink into oblivion. Although I am wandering in the abyss of oblivion, although I am lingering on the edge of death, I will never die, I will never sink into oblivion. My combat power, Sakura, the power of lawlessness, appeared again. Lu Feng's eyes shot out chaotic light, piercing through time and space. In the next moment, in the endless darkness, his arm appeared and easily pierced through all the darkness. Era of the Emperor! Era of the Emperor! Lu Feng actually chose the strongest power, the era of the Emperor. Endless eras, golden light flashed, illuminating heaven and earth, illuminating the whole era. A great giant slowly walked out from the endless luxurious era. His arm waved, and billions of illusory creatures screamed and went crazy. Lu Feng was Lu Feng. He was the Emperor Lu Feng. The power of one person condensed an entire era, turning into the eternal Emperor of the era of the Emperor. His arm wave was the command of the whole era. Therefore, those billions of creatures, countless immortals, demons, and gods, all turned into eternal power, crushing everything. Sky Huey's mouth was red. The era of darkness was torn apart, and he was also heavily injured, even more unimaginably so. The light in his eyes dimmed. This time, Lu Feng's era of the Emperor was broken, and he suffered indescribable damage in his own world. A world is indeed terrifying and powerful. However, a powerful world is still just a world. How can it collide with an era? Although this was an incomplete era, and it was only the embryonic form of an era, what this era represented was still an era. An era. This was not something a world could contend against. Sky Hui finally steamed the blood at the corner of his mouth. He could no longer wait. In his own world, how could he admit defeat like this? How could he admit defeat in the face of an era that was incomplete, or even in its embryonic form, and such a fragile era at that? Therefore, he was also shaken. Heaven and earth grieves. Heaven and earth grieves. This was the Tian family's ultimate technique. Under the limit, it could reach the peak and become an immortal venerable. At this moment, when it was used in this world, and with the support of the world, it could be said that the world was grieving. Lu Feng was suppressed. A piece of heaven and earth squeezed at the same time, carrying the true power of the world, suppressing him. Lu Feng's massive body was slowly collapsing. Blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth, and countless cracks appeared on his body. How long had it been? Lu Feng didn't even know how long it had been since he had experienced such a thing, nor had he faced such a heavy injury. Finally, half of the monarch's body collapsed, and Lu Feng's body seemed to be on the verge of shattering as well. Tragic, this was really incomparably tragic. In the previous battles, many of the results were much worse than this, but the scene of their collision was far from being comparable to this. Therefore, the feeling it gave people at this moment was endless tragedy. Lu Feng didn't give up. Even after his body suffered such a heavy injury, he still didn't choose to give up, and there was no compromise. He was still as crazy as he was before, smelting everything into his body, and the strength of his heart supported Lu Feng to fight even more crazily. Those who knew Lu Feng were puzzled. They didn't understand why Lu Feng had to pay such a heavy price when he could easily win the battle. No one understood, and no one understood. Because the only person who truly understood everything was Lu Feng himself. He wanted to move forward, to improve, and obviously, the current speed of his progress made him dissatisfied. Therefore, Lu Feng wanted to take advantage of this madness to make himself break through. This was Lu Feng's real idea. Therefore, he could easily suppress his opponent with any kind of power he used. However, he didn't do so, but chose to rely on the power of martial arts to fight against the opponent. Even if he suffered such a tribulation, he would never give up. Everything was just for Lu Feng to break through. Unfortunately, he wouldn't say it, and these people were destined not to understand. Chapter 895. Lu Feng's soul trembled slightly as his body was seriously injured. Unfortunately, he had not given up. He was even crazier than before. It was unknown how long it had been, but the craziness and sharpness had not appeared. This time, Lu Feng's eyes were once again filled with that long-lost color. His blood splattered. Ignored. His body collapsed. Ignored. In the eyes of everyone, he was a madman. Another punch, a punch that shook the heavens and earth. At this moment, many people took a small step back. Under the pressure of Lu Feng's crazy aura, they were just spectators, but they could not help but take a step back. This was the most terrifying part of Lu Feng. The ultimate king. Are all ultimate kings this crazy? Their battle is not just a confrontation of strength, but more of a confrontation of willpower. If one's willpower is not as good as his, then one will be affected in the end. If the spectators are like this, then what about Tianhui, who is enduring the craziest of all? How does he feel about it? At this moment, Tianhui was indeed enduring this extreme horror. He was strong, but far from being strong enough to suppress Lu Feng directly. Therefore, he could only look directly at Lu Feng's strength and terror. He could only endure this kind of suppression in his heart and soul. He was really in pain, incomparably painful. Killing again. Lu Feng was killing again, causing people's hearts to tremble. This time, he was as domineering as before, and he was killing without knowing the limits of his strength. The crowd did not know how many times he had killed. Right now, Lu Feng was in an extremely miserable state. His body was seriously injured, and his blood dyed the world red. However, he did not know what it meant to give up. He was still incomparably crazy, and he was still killing at the peak. The strength of a third-level golden immortal, although he is not Tianhui's match because he does not have the support of the power of the realm. However, he can already guarantee that he will not be easily suppressed by Tianhui. Now, with the passage of time, it is no longer a collision of strength. This has become a real collision of willpower. It is a confrontation of the limits of willpower. Obviously, Tianhui is really in danger. Theoretically speaking, Tianhui was still much stronger. However, these people understood that in such a battle, combat strength could no longer determine everything. What they saw was a clash of wills. However, it was clear that Lu Feng's will wasn't something that people at his level should be able to see. Thus, as the battle continued, the situation of the battle began to tilt. A true change had occurred. In the past, Tianhui had relied on his own strength to firmly suppress Lu Feng. But now, they were evenly matched. In fact, Lu Feng was beginning to gain the upper hand. Without a doubt, this scene left all the spectators speechless. As the sky trembled, Lu Feng stood on the ground of the inner world and panted heavily. He was really miserable now, but Lu Feng still didn't give up. The entire inner world, which was a terrifying huge world with a radius of more than 100,000 miles, was mottled. The ground was shattered, the rivers were broken, and the sky was dusky. It was a doomsday world. This was the state of a world that was about to decay. The cause of all this was Lu Feng. As long as the creator of this world hadn't perished, the original existence of this world could be restored. However, it was clear that the creator of this world didn't have the time to care about anything. He had already sunk into his own depravity. He really didn't have much strength left. Lu Feng exhaled gently. The madness in his eyes hadn't been extinguished. It was as if he didn't see the damage to his body. He didn't see anything at all. Right now, he only had one goal, and that was to go crazy for the last time. This time, I have gained a lot. If it had been anyone else, they would have definitely collapsed. After all, this kind of devastation was really unbearable. It was almost like an experience of death. However, for Lu Feng, who had a strong will, this wasn't a big deal. Although he was trembling slightly, he was still persevering in his heart. This was his final perseverance. Let's end this with one strike. I can already feel it. I have succeeded once again. Previously, he had already been at the great circle of this realm and had been on the verge of a breakthrough. However, the last shackle was really terrifying, so it wasn't easy for him to shatter it. Therefore, Lu Feng had thought of this crazy method. He wanted to use this time to help himself break through. This was Lu Feng's final plan. The result was indeed very satisfying for Lu Feng. He was very satisfied. The reason for that was because he could already sense the surging destructive power within his body. The fifth level of the great demon true body is the power of destruction. It is the power of destruction. This time, I will go all out and find the true meaning of my existence in the midst of destruction. All the power in his body was gradually disappearing. The only thing left was the power of destruction. Lu Feng gave up on all other powers and focused on destruction. Apocalyptic Great Demon, one of the supreme powers that I have comprehended is the power of destruction. Then this time, I will use this power of destruction to create my immortal future. Upheaval. It was a complete upheaval. Lu Feng had used the true meaning of death and the source of destruction. When everyone felt the change in Lu Feng, an indescribable expression appeared on their faces. They could already feel that Lu Feng had started to change once again. He seemed to have given up everything, and actually chose the only kind of power. This power was the power of destruction. But the power of destruction isn't his strongest power. Lu Feng, what is he thinking? How could he choose such a destructive force? What is he trying to do? Nobody understood what he was trying to do. They couldn't understand or guess what he was trying to do. Therefore, all they could do was watch as Lu Feng gave up everything else and turned it into the ultimate, terrifying power of destruction. His eyes were filled with a ferocious flame that could destroy the world. It made people's souls unconsciously get sucked in and really make them tremble. Behind him, a strange phenomenon appeared. It was a strange phenomenon that belonged to a black hole that could devour everything and annihilate the world. However, not long after this strange phenomenon appeared, it gradually disintegrated. A moment later, an even stranger scene appeared. It was a completely new scene. It was an existence that was filled with dark clouds. However, these dark clouds didn't appear for very long. After a moment, the dark clouds disappeared. What remained was a deep, destructive aura. There wasn't any strange phenomenon. It was just a feeling, but the existence of this feeling made everyone feel that it was an unusual illusion. They could sense that, although there wasn't any strange phenomenon, there was something even more frightening behind Lu Feng, where the strange phenomenon should have been. Once that thing appeared, it would be enough to annihilate all living things. In the next moment, under the gazes of hundreds of millions of people, under the prying eyes of everyone, Lu Feng smiled. It was an incomprehensible smile. It was really strange and mysterious. Lu Feng had been annihilated by this smile. He had really been annihilated. He had really become an existence of nothingness. It was as if he had really died completely. Countless people couldn't help but gasp in shock. In their opinion, Lu Feng had actually turned into a destructive, deathly force. How is this possible? What is Lu Feng trying to do? In order to win, he actually turned into destruction. However, even if he wins, he will still be annihilated. In order to defeat a mere Tianhui, why would he make such a choice? Why would he choose to annihilate himself? If he chose to turn into a destructive force and become a destructive existence, then he would be able to win. In the end, he would still be annihilated and completely annihilated. In everyone's opinion, Lu Feng was the taboo monarch, while Tianhui was just a mere emperor-level freak. There was an essential difference between the two of them. Lu Feng really wasn't worth sacrificing himself for Tianhui. It wasn't worth it at all. However, Lu Feng had done it. He had done it irrevocably. He had turned into annihilation and evolved into the ultimate phenomenon. The embryonic form of the Great Tribulation of the universe had finally attacked Tianhui. The world had been destroyed. The Great Tribulation of the universe was the foundation that could destroy an era. It was the terror of annihilation. Its appearance could even completely shatter time and space. It was an existence that could end an era. Therefore, a mere world had disappeared in an instant. No one could have imagined such a powerful attack. Everyone was terrified. They knew that such an attack could definitely annihilate a second-level golden immortal, a second-level golden immortal who had comprehended the power of a world. Lu Feng had really done it, but the result? He wanted to annihilate himself as well. Was it really worth it? Was it really worth it? At the last moment, a figure appeared and stood quietly between the heavens and earth. With a slight wave of his arm, all the annihilation force was completely suppressed. The heavens and earth returned to its previous incomparably tranquil state. When they saw him, many people had incomparably respectful expressions on their faces. At this moment, no matter who it was, they all respectfully bent their backs and bowed deeply towards that figure. Greetings, Sect Master Tianhui, Sect Master Tianhui, Tianqiong Immortal Venerable, one of the three perfected immortal venerables of Lin Langtian, the peerless immortal venerable of the Tian family, Tianqiong Immortal Venerable. He too had arrived. Chapter 896. With a gentle wave of his arm, everyone in the world was lifted up. This was the power of an immortal sovereign. It was an unbelievable power. Everything became tranquil. Countless people were silent as they looked at the unconscious existence in Heaven Immortal Sovereign's hand. That was Tianhui. At the last moment, Heaven Immortal Sovereign took action and saved Tianhui. However, everyone began to search for Lu Feng's whereabouts again. However, after searching for a long time, they still couldn't find him. At this moment, many people were at a loss. The majority of them had grown up listening to the legend of the Final King. They were truly shocked by the legend of the Final King. However, at this moment, this legendary invincible existence had actually fallen? No one was willing to believe this. It was as if their faith had suddenly collapsed. These people were truly unbelievable. Silence. Endless silence. Only the incomparably quiet Heaven Immortal Sovereign existed between heaven and earth. After a long time, Heaven Immortal Sovereign finally let out a sigh. His voice slowly sounded, "The Final King is truly worthy of being called the Final King. You are the ultimate symbol of an era, the ultimate symbol of endless time and space, the strongest existence. In this world, there is truly no existence that can compare to you." Hearing Heaven Immortal Sovereign's words, everyone was slightly stunned. They didn't understand what Heaven Immortal Sovereign meant. Could it be that choosing to fall for the sake of victory was also considered as being invincible? This should be foolish. However, in the next moment they saw it. He saw his existence, slowly appearing, rebirth from death. Light from the darkness. In the eternal darkness, he let out his strongest voice. At the end of all eras, he was the ultimate existence. This was the Final King. This was the unparalleled power of the Final King. Lu Feng had returned. Everyone felt the indescribably terrifying destructive aura between heaven and earth. They felt as if the entire world was about to fall into an era of destruction. And it was in this endless era of destruction that Lu Feng was reborn. He was completely reborn. Just like that, his body appeared before everyone's eyes. Soon, everything was restored to how it was before. However, in the next moment, everyone was stunned and horrified. That was because they could sense that Lu Feng was completely different than before. He actually made a breakthrough? He actually made a complete breakthrough? He actually became a true immortal. Countless people trembled. They finally understood why Lu Feng had acted so crazily before. It turned out that everything he had done was for one thing, and that was to break through. Lu Feng was only trying to break through. And breakthrough, it was really a breakthrough, a world-destroying demon. This was the great apocalyptic demon. This was the fifth stage of the great demon true body, the true peak stage of the great demon true body, the great demon true body. In the next moment, Lu Feng began to cast his blessings and completed all of them. Lu Feng quietly stood between the heaven and earth, accepting the faith and worship of billions of living beings. He was the one and only for eternity. After being reborn from death, he returned with the greatest hope and power. At this moment, Lu Feng's extreme battle physique was cast. Feeling the invincible power of Lu Feng's battle physique, everyone was silent and their eyes were trembling. At this moment, they finally understood Lu Feng's real trump card and why Lu Feng dared to ignore Tianhui. This is the power of the world. This is an existence above the origin, not an existence that can be reinforced. How did he do it? Many people were confused. However, they couldn't deny that it was the power of the world. Moreover, this power of the world was definitely the most powerful power of the world. Compared to the blessing of a world, it was more than just a realm stronger. What I can sense from his body is an entire world. Could it be? Their eyes were filled with endless turmoil. Many people finally understood and they were shocked. This is the true blessing of the world. No, this is not the blessing of the world, but the integration of the world. This Lu Feng, he actually integrated the world into his body. What a crazy feat this was! Since ancient times, many people have tried to do it, but none of them succeeded. In the end, many existences even gave up such an idea. After all, this is a reality that has never been successful. Lu Feng actually succeeded. This is the power of the ultimate king. This is the true invincible ultimate king. Everyone could only attribute all of this to Lu Feng's identity as the ultimate king. Because they did not believe that other than Lu Feng, there was no one else who could do it. However, venerable immortal Lin Long, who was hiding in the void and gradually walked out, was full of astonishment. Unlike those people, she was an immortal venerable, a perfected flowing time immortal venerable, so she knew some things. She knew that this was not something that could be achieved just because Lu Feng was the ultimate king. Because someone had tried it before, but the result was a failure in this era. In the early period of this era, one of the 5 ultimate kings, the Demon King, had tried it. But in the end, he failed, completely failed. Because of his identity as the ultimate king, he did not die, but the result was that he was seriously injured and almost died. The immortal king had once told Lu Feng that the Demon King was seriously injured and had not recovered for a long time. That was why he summoned his doppelganger to fight with Lu Feng. And the root cause of the Demon King's injury was the condensed world battle physique. He had also tried it before, but the result was that he failed. The Demon King failed in the end. It was because there was already a ultimate king who had tried and failed that venerable immortal Lin Long was shocked. In his mind, Lu Feng had barely reached the standard of an ultimate monarch. However, he couldn't compare to the true ultimate monarchs, the 5 ultimate monarchs who had traveled through 12 eras. But now, the scene that she saw made her understand that she was wrong. It was his own imagination that made a huge mistake. Lu Feng was indeed a new ultimate king, but unfortunately, he was not the kind of ultimate king who had no accumulation at all. Lu Feng's strength was not weaker than any of the ultimate kings. In fact, he was even stronger than those ultimate kings to some extent. The world battle physique that allowed him to advance from a peak immortal to a golden immortal with 3 layers of world was the most obvious example. Lu Feng was really powerful, too powerful and invincible. Tianhui is indeed an ant in front of him. He has no ability and capital to resist. Lu Feng is an emperor. This is the real emperor of the current era. He might not be any weaker than the emperor of the past, she sighed softly, filled with a complicated feeling. The formation of the world battle physique was an invincible golden immortal battle physique. In addition, Lu Feng's strength was far higher than Tian Hui's. It could be said that if Lu Feng wanted to, he could completely suppress Tian Hui in an instant. Therefore, Tian Hui was an ant in his eyes. Lu Feng had broken through and achieved the world-destroying great demon true body. The terrifying and violent power made everyone unconsciously retreat in fear. His eyes opened instantly. At this moment, a shocking amount of power was generated in the void. This power came from the underworld. There was no trace that could be traced, but it did exist. In the end, all of this power poured into Lu Feng's body. It actually made Lu Feng's realm begin to transform. It began to transform crazily. Many people's eyes were already filled with turmoil. They were all experts. Naturally, they could feel the current state of Lu Feng's body. They could feel Lu Feng's current mythical improvement. In just a moment, Lu Feng had broken through. A mid-level true immortal. But it wasn't over. How could everything end so simply? Because in the next moment, Lu Feng broke through even more powerfully. A high-level true immortal, a peak true immortal. The three realms were crossed in the blink of an eye. After absorbing the endless power and completing the most powerful breakthrough, Lu Feng had really entered a kind of limit. At this moment, Lu Feng's body was flickering with violent power. It was hundreds and thousands of times stronger than the power he used to suppress Tian Hui. What a powerful feeling! This is at least the power of a 6th-level Golden Immortal, or even the power of a 7th-level Golden Immortal. This peak true Immortal Lu Feng is actually comparable to a peak Golden Immortal? They were speechless. They couldn't say or do anything. The only thing they could do was tremble. Lu Feng's breakthrough was too shocking. Such an instant made everyone's hearts tremble and panic. However, this still wasn't the end. Because in addition to these, Lu Feng also had another kind of cultivation, and that was the cultivation of a psyche master. Vaguely, everyone saw that outside Lu Feng's body, there was a shadow that looked exactly like him, floating quietly in midair. Seeing this scene, countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, even Sky Dome Immortal Venerable and Lin Long were endlessly shocked. Twin souls, that's a supreme superpower, twin souls. That's the most powerful supreme superpower that belongs to the ultimate king, twin souls. Yes, Lu Feng is the ultimate king. As the ultimate king, how could he not have supreme superpower? The appearance of the twin souls has completely revealed his identity as the ultimate king. But how can he be so powerful? The existence of the twin souls made everyone see Lu Feng in a new light. Previously, the combat strength that Lu Feng had displayed was already something that they couldn't do even if they looked up to him. That kind of combat strength was even slightly stronger than the ultimate kings of the past when they were in their strongest state. But now, Lu Feng had once again displayed an even more powerful scene, showing the existence of the twin souls. With the twin souls, Lu Feng's combat strength had increased by more than one level. Twin souls, twin souls. This also meant that Lu Feng had another kind of combat strength. Once the twin souls were used at the same time, the increase in his combat strength would definitely be more than 2 or 3 times. It could be said that once Lu Feng used the twin souls, even the ultimate kings of the past would definitely not be a match for Lu Feng. Perhaps this was the most powerful trump card that allowed Lu Feng to laugh proudly in the world and remain undefeated in the face of anything. This was the trump card that allowed him to challenge everything. This ultimate king is really an ultimate king, vaguely. Venerable Lin Long recalled the words that Lu Feng had said in the past. Lu Feng had said that he was an ultimate king, the only ultimate king, not the ultimate king of the past. At that time, Venerable Lin Long really felt that Lu Feng was very arrogant, but now, it seemed like he wasn't exaggerating at all. Because what he had displayed now was a power that had surpassed the ultimate king of the past. He was a brand new ultimate king. In the future, what will this ultimate king Lu Feng be like in the future? I'm afraid he'll reach the height of his ancestor, the height of that forbidden existence. It won't be difficult at all. In the void, after the activation of dusk, Lu Feng became even more extreme. His second primordial spirit was calm in the void, but in the next moment it became turbulent. That was because its cultivation level was also rapidly increasing. In an instant, the shackles of the sacred master realm were shattered. Lu Feng had already become a sacred master. Then, he once again absorbed the endless power of the king's prayer, which allowed Lu Feng's cultivation realm to continuously increase. He actually also entered the pinnacle of the sacred master realm. Double pinnacle, this was double pinnacle. At this moment, Lu Feng felt that he was really powerful, extremely powerful, too powerful. He was confident that even if he were to face a peak golden immortal, he would still be undefeated. This was already equivalent to the peerless virtual king who was at the pinnacle of the world. He was already standing at the pinnacle when he displayed that invincible power. Chapter 897. He slowly descended from the sky. At this moment, Lu Feng felt that he was unprecedentedly powerful. However, when he saw the silent figure beside him, a strange look flashed across Lu Feng's eyes. He looked at Tian Hui, who was completely unconscious, and an idea formed in his mind. He had already guessed who this person was. Greetings, Sky Dome Immortal Venerable. Lu Feng bowed slightly. To an immortal venerable, this kind of etiquette was really rude. However, when Lu Feng bowed, Heaven Dome Immortal Venerate merely tilted his body slightly. He didn't even try to receive it. The monarch of the current age is indeed world-shaking. Looking at Lu Feng, Heaven Dome Immortal Venerate sighed softly, deeply lamenting. He had seen Lu Feng's performance earlier with his own eyes. Naturally, he knew what this represented. Although the current Lu Feng was far from being his opponent in terms of strength, he didn't even have the qualifications to face him. But in the future, he was destined to become an ant-like existence in Lu Feng's eyes. This Emperor Lu Feng was bound to rule the 9 heavens and 10 earths in the future and become a supreme sovereign. Lu Feng didn't take it to heart. He just looked at Sky Dome Immortal Venerable quietly. He knew that Sky Dome Immortal Venerate wouldn't be telling him this for no reason. After all, even though he was an overlord right now and had displayed a strength that could cause others to tremble in fear, it was still nothing in the eyes of an invincible existence like the Sky Dome Immortal Sovereign. He must have his own reasons for expressing this. Looking at Lu Feng, Sky Dome Immortal Venerate remained silent for a moment before speaking. Lu Feng, actually, I'm here because I hope you can forgive Tianhui. The one who should forgive Tianhui was Lin Yu. However, Heaven Dome Immortal Venerate was speaking to Lu Feng. In fact, everyone who heard this understood that Lin Yu was really nothing. If Lu Feng wasn't the monarch and didn't display such strength, how could Heaven Dome Immortal Venerable possibly come here and say such words? Hearing this, Lu Feng was silent for a moment. After a while, he gently nodded. Actually, there was nothing between me and him in the first place. Speaking of which, I purposely provoked him this time and used him as a stepping stone for me to rise up. I don't have any other feelings towards him. Lu Feng spoke very casually and indifferently. These people also understood that Lu Feng was right. In Lu Feng's eyes, a so-called monarch-level freak was indeed nothing. He was not worthy of his attention. However, the person he offended was Lin Yu, and Lin Yu is my friend. So it's up to Lin Yu to decide whether to forgive him or not. Initially, Lu Feng wanted to teach him a lesson. But now, even Sky Dome Immortal Venerable had appeared personally. Lu Feng naturally couldn't say anything. After all, he still had to give face to a great perfection Immortal Venerable. Sky Dome Immortal Venerable was silent for a moment. After a while, he gently nodded. About that, I understand. It was a very simple sentence, but it had already explained a lot of things. Sky Dome Immortal Venerable had understood. Lu Feng smiled and nodded. This time, he could let Lin Yu gain some benefit. In that case, Lin Yu wouldn't be injured in vain. The battle had ended. Lu Feng no longer had any reason or excuse to stay. So he chose to return. However, Lu Feng didn't leave because he was still staying in Lin Langtian. For Lu Feng, this was the most suitable place. After all, he still had to wait for Lin Yu to wake up. Lu Feng's first stop after leaving the arena wasn't Lin Langtian. Instead, he chose the square, the place where the bets were placed. After all, Lu Feng had bet millions of pills on him. He remembered that the odds at that time were 50 times. So now, Lu Feng could get 50 million pills of 5th or 6th grade. Lu Feng believed that with their credibility, they wouldn't cheat him. After all, although 50 million pills was a huge amount, it was still within their range of tolerance. When Lu Fenglai arrived, the great golden immortal was already waiting quietly. Previously, Lu Feng had to be cautious when facing him. But now it was different. He had already made a strong breakthrough. His power was terrifying. Even if he faced any peak great golden immortal, he might not necessarily lose. Therefore, when Lu Feng saw him again, he could already treat him calmly. As if he had expected Lu Feng's arrival, the great golden immortal revealed a wry smile when he saw Lu Feng. Young Master Lu, you are indeed worthy of your title as the ultimate king. If I had known young Master Lu's identity, I wouldn't have set up this bet no matter what. Hearing this, Lu Feng smiled slightly. Indeed, if he didn't have great confidence, Lu Feng wouldn't have casually chosen to bet and directly used millions of pills. Seeing the great golden immortal's slightly helpless expression, Lu Feng shook his head gently. If you can't take it out now, you can wait for a while before giving it to me. In addition, just give me divine items of equal value. It's not necessary for me to have pills. Hearing this, the great golden immortal's eyes flashed with a trace of light. He nodded his head lightly. Then please wait a few days, young Master Lu. During this period of time, I will draw enough divine items from other continents and give them to young Master Lu according to the ratio. If possible, no one would be willing to use pills. After all, in the hearts of these people, the value of pills was far from what divine items could compare to. And Lu Feng's actions undoubtedly made them very happy. Lu Feng nodded slightly. In comparison, Lu Feng liked divine items more. Moreover, even if he was really paid with pills, then Lu Feng would eventually exchange them for divine items. Lu Feng was a person who was afraid of trouble. Since someone could help him exchange them in advance, why not? Therefore, Lu Feng chose divine items. After saying a few more words, Lu Feng turned around and left. He had already told this great golden immortal that he would stay in Lin Langtian for a period of time, so as long as he waited for him to gather them, he could come directly to him. Looking at Lu Feng's back as he left, the great golden immortal let out a long sigh with a strange expression. Beside him, the middle-aged man who had appeared several times also slowly walked over. A divine item worth 50 million pills of the 5th or 6th grade. This is really not a small number. The great golden immortal nodded slightly and shrugged helplessly. Yes, this is indeed not a small number. But so what? Can we not give it to him? If they didn't give it to him, they could just run away. But what they would lose was their reputation. In the future, who would bet on them? When they knew that Lu Feng was an emperor-level monster, they didn't dare to have such thoughts. And now that they knew that Lu Feng was actually the final king, and even the most terrifying final king, they naturally wouldn't do this. Actually, this is considered good. At least in the future, we can get familiar with Lu Feng. If it were other forces and experts with conditions, they would definitely be willing to take out such valuable divine items just to make friends with Lu Feng. Perhaps even Lin Lang Tian was the same. But unfortunately, not everyone had such an opportunity. Moreover, these divine items should belong to Lu Feng, so they were naturally happy to take them out. Let's go back and report. I believe the headquarters won't object. After all, this is for Lu Feng. The figures of the two gradually faded and finally disappeared completely. They completely disappeared without a trace. Time continued to pass. During this period of time, Lu Feng didn't waste any time. What he chose was to comprehend the martial Tao. In fact, after condensing the power of the world, the comprehension of the martial Tao was no longer a big deal. After all, compared to the power of the world, the power of the martial Tao couldn't bring much of a boost. However, Lu Feng still didn't give up. He still chose to comprehend because Lu Feng wanted to reach the peak, so he couldn't let go of anything. 10 days. Lu Feng didn't leave the room for 10 whole days. And in these 10 days, he had already comprehended all the things he needed to comprehend. As expected, my current realm is already very terrifying. It's already very easy to comprehend the martial Tao and even the content of the primordial scripture in Shen Yuan's Sea of Consciousness. The most difficult path has already disappeared. What's left is the path for me to truly rise up. All the shackles had really disappeared completely. His future was now clear. The era of invincibility was about to begin. Lu Feng could finally let go of all the shackles and enjoy the joy of breaking through to the fullest. When he walked out of the room, 2 figures appeared beside him. They were Lin Longtian's 2 monstrous disciples. However, at the moment, they had become specialized attendants and were quietly waiting for Lu Feng. When they saw Lu Feng walk out, their eyes lit up and they walked over to Lu Feng's side. "Young Master Lu, you're out." Lu Feng nodded his head gently. His expression was calm. At that moment, one of the monstrous disciples suddenly said, "Young Master Lu, young Master Lin woke up 2 days ago. However, because you were still cultivating, we didn't disturb you. I wonder if you would like to meet him now." When Lu Feng heard that Lin Yu had woken up, his expression was filled with joy. This wasn't an act at all. He was really so happy. He nodded his head gently and said, "Bring me over now." Hearing this, the disciple didn't hesitate and directly brought Lu Feng over. Lu Feng had been to Lin Yu's place once before, but he was directly sent over by Venerable Lin Long at that time. Therefore, he naturally didn't know the way. This time, Lu Feng was led by someone, and it took him a long time to reach his destination. Looking at the pale-faced Lin Yu in the hall, Lu Feng softly chuckled as he shouted, "Lin Yu!" Chapter 898. When Lu Feng came in, Lin Yu already knew. When he saw Lu Feng's smile, Lin Yu smiled as well. Although he didn't spend much time with Lu Feng, they had been apart for a long time. However, in Lin Yu's heart, Lu Feng was his first true friend, and even his first good brother. Everything he had experienced in the past made him feel close to Lu Feng from the bottom of his heart. Although they hadn't seen each other for 10 years, 10 years wasn't a long time for cultivators. Therefore, when he saw Lu Feng this time, he felt a sense of familiarity that he hadn't felt in a long time. "Lu Feng, you're here." Lu Feng nodded, still chuckling. However, in the next moment, he pulled a long face. "To be honest, Lin Yu, you're really nothing much. You were actually beaten up like that. Shameful, really shameful." Hearing this, Lin Yu only smiled helplessly. "Do you think everyone is as abnormal as you? You're only a peak immortal, but you actually have the strength to challenge a peak golden immortal." Indeed, Lin Yu's failure was completely within his imagination. After all, his opponent was Tian Hui. Compared to Tian Hui, Lin Yu was not only inferior in terms of cultivation, but even worse in terms of strength and aptitude. Moreover, Tian Hui had comprehended the power of the world. Such strength was far from what Lin Yu could defeat. In fact, Lu Feng was only joking when he said this. Obviously, Lin Yu also understood it. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Lu Feng smiled helplessly and shook his head. "All right. Let's not talk about this anymore. How are you now?" Lin Yu smiled bitterly, but in the next moment, a strange emotion rose in his heart. The injury this time is really not simple. Of course, my harvest is also not small. With this serious injury and the approval of Sky Dome Immortal Venerable, it won't be long before I become an emperor-level monstrous genius. Lu Feng was slightly stunned, not understanding what this meant. At this time, Lin Yu finally told Lu Feng everything. After Lin Yu returned to Lin Langtian, he quickly caused a sensation. At that time, Lin Yu finally understood why he appeared in the place where he was born. His parents used to be direct descendants of the Lin clan of Lin Lang Heaven. They were the offspring of the Lin clan and the Lang clan through marriage. Originally, these two were peerless geniuses of Lin Langtian. They were both peak emperor-level geniuses. Their bloodline, Lin Yu, could be said to be the hope of these two great clans. But who would have thought that the two of them would be hunted down in the Yellow Springs continent, the territory that belonged to Lin Langtian? At that time, Lin Yu had just been born. In order to ensure Lin Yu's survival, they had no choice but to abandon Lin Yu and face those powerful enemies alone. The final result. Naturally, the two of them had completely fallen. This was Lin Yu's background. After separating from Lu Feng, Lin Yu went to Glittering Heavens by himself. After returning to Lin Langtian, he naturally received extraordinary treatment. Because of this, Lin Langtian almost gave Lin Yu the opportunity that belonged to Tian Hui. However, in the end, he didn't deprive Lin Yu of the opportunity. Instead, he gathered the opportunity again and let Lin Yu become the next existence to try. Naturally, after learning the truth, Tian Hui began to find trouble with Lin Yu, which led to the scene of Lin Yu being seriously injured. However, because of the appearance of Lu Feng and Lu Feng's strength, Lin Yu finally got the opportunity in advance. Even the supreme of the Tian clan, Sky Dome Immortal Venerable, agreed to provide enough things to let Lin Yu enter the space of inheritance in advance to accept the world's baptism. He wanted to see if he could comprehend the world's power and become a true emperor-level monstrous genius. Looking at Lin Yu, Lu Feng smiled gently. "It seems that this time, you've profited from a disaster?" Lin Yu shrugged, indicating that this was indeed the case. He looked at Lu Feng and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Lu Feng, what happened when you entered the land of sealed demons?" When he separated from Lu Feng had entered the land of sealed demons. Moreover, Lu Feng had said that when he returned, he would definitely come to find him directly. However, Lu Feng only came over 10 years later. During this period, if Lin Yu didn't know that Lu Feng was the current emperor, he would have thought that Lu Feng must have died. After all, in this place, for ordinary powerhouses, let alone 10 years, it would be a great opportunity to stay alive for a few days. Hearing Lin Yu's doubts, Lu Feng smiled gently and said, "Of course, it's the Shimo. However, I also experienced a lot of things here. This allowed me to make some breakthroughs and become much stronger." A glimmer of light flashed in Lin Yu's eyes. To be able to make Lu Feng break through, this must be a truly shocking improvement. After all, Lu Feng was the true ultimate king. However, seeing that Lu Feng didn't seem to have any intention of continuing, Lin Yu naturally didn't ask anything else. He smiled gently. "It seems that I definitely won't be able to catch up to you. However, I'm considered lucky. At least if I want to transform, I won't have to enter those dangerous environments. This time, when I return from the inheritance space, I'll probably be much stronger." Lu Feng was silent for a moment, then nodded gently. "Then, when will you be able to enter the inheritance space?" I plan to leave soon, but cultivating like this really isn't of any help to me. If I want to break through quickly, I'll have to endure endless collisions. At this moment, Lu Feng no longer hid anything. Naturally, everyone could see his situation clearly. After all, Lu Feng had fought a bloody battle and defeated Tian Hui while concealing most of his strength. Then, he made a shocking breakthrough and directly became a peak true immortal. This made many people realize that Lu Feng must have cultivated some unparalleled cultivation technique to achieve this level. And this cultivation technique was achieved through fighting, in the midst of life and death. Therefore, Lu Feng didn't have much to say now. Hearing this, Lin Yu was silent for a moment, then finally nodded gently. It won't take long. I've already taken the elixir, so I'll recover in a few days. After I recover, I can enter the inheritance space and choose the inheritance. The inheritance won't take long. After I come out of the inheritance space, I'll be heading to the overseas Paragon Holy Grounds. Lu Feng nodded gently. He wanted to say something. However, in the next moment, Lin Yu's voice rang out again. Lu Feng, when the time comes, you'll come with me to the Paragon Holy Grounds. If you want to fight, then the overseas Paragon Holy Grounds is the most suitable place for you. There are countless powerhouses and monstrous geniuses there. I've heard the primogenitor mention that there's someone in the Master's holy grounds who can truly be your opponent. Hearing this, Lu Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. After a moment of silence, he smiled. Which one are you talking about? Now, there were only a few people who were qualified to be Lu Feng's opponent. Apart from them, no one else was qualified at all. Therefore, Lu Feng directly asked which one it was. Lin Yu was silent for a moment, then finally said, I heard that it should be the Divine King. The Divine King. Lu Feng nodded gently. In his mind, he thought of everything about the Divine King. He knew about the 5 great taboo kings. The emperor back then should be the one who was tied up in the foreign battlefield. The one who seriously injured and even almost suppressed the primogenitor of the Lu family should be the emperor. He had collided with the immortal king and the demon king. Although the collision with the immortal king was not a real collision, it was only a confrontation in the field of alchemy. However, it could be considered a contact. Strictly speaking, the contact he had with the immortal king was a real contact. As for the demon king, Lu Feng had fought against him before. He had even defeated the demon king when he was 1 level lower than him. Unfortunately, that was the clone of the demon king, not the real demon king. That kind of demon king had not been blessed by any era and was a seriously injured demon king. Therefore, Lu Feng did not feel that there was much pride in defeating such a demon king. Lu Feng actually knew about the remaining 2 taboo kings, the Divine King and the Holy King. However, he had never seen them before. As for the Divine King, Lu Feng also knew something about him. That was the Great Wilderness Totem. Back then, the Divine King had also entered the Great Wilderness Totem and wanted to get his hands on the final sacred tablet. Unfortunately, he failed and even lost all the qualifications of an era. This was everything Lu Feng knew about the Divine King. Now, he did not expect that the Divine King was actually on one of the 3 overseas islands, the Supreme Holy Land. This really made him very interested. Looking at Lu Feng, Lin Yu smiled lightly. He knew that Lu Feng must be interested. After all, that was the Divine King. Lu Feng, I know that for the current you, ordinary existences are nothing at all. If someone wants to fight with you, then they must be at the level of the Ultimate King. Only the Ultimate King can let you fight a real battle. The only person I know about the whereabouts of the Ultimate King is the Divine King. At the moment, he is in the Supreme Holy Land. It seems like he is going through some shocking transformation. Once he completes the transformation, he will leave there. Lu Feng nodded gently with an inexplicable smile on his face. Transformation. They have finally decided to undergo a transformation. I just don't know how strong they will be after the transformation. I hope they won't disappoint me then. Turning to look at Lin Yu, Lu Feng did not remain silent. He said directly, "Then, I will wait for you. I have to go to the overseas Holy Land." In order to break through, Lu Feng had really decided to go. Back then, in order to smoothly break through, he had chosen to start the final battle of the kings before he became a god. He had fought so many supreme kings with his weak body. Now that he had finally found an opponent, how could Lu Feng still be so calm? Therefore, he had to appear and fight with the divine king. Hearing this, Lin Yu smiled gently. He knew that once he mentioned the divine king's name, Lu Feng would definitely go. Then, after I recover in a few days, I will enter the land of inheritance and try to comprehend the power of the world as quickly as possible. Whether I succeed or not, this time I will accompany you to the overseas Holy Land. After all, the supreme Holy Land is indispensable to me. Lu Feng nodded and did not say anything else. Chapter 899. After leaving Lin Yu's place, Lu Feng went into seclusion again. This time, he chose the independent space where Lin Lang Tian and the other elders cultivated. Only Lin Lang Tian's immortal king elders were qualified to use such a place. However, since it was Lu Feng who needed it, Lin Lang Tian naturally wouldn't disagree. Soon, the seclusion place was prepared for Lu Feng. It was waiting for Lu Feng to enter. Lu Feng didn't hesitate and entered the place. In fact, Lu Feng didn't have much time to cultivate now. The reason he found such a quiet and peaceful place without any disturbances was to refine pills. Now that he had entered the realm of Sage Master, he could refine real grade 8 pills. With the pills, Lu Feng would have enough wealth to collect the godly items. When he returned to the original universe, he could use the godly items to improve the strength of the people around him. Sitting quietly in the void, Lu Feng didn't start refining immediately. The failure last time was still vivid in his mind. Although it wasn't enough to discourage him, Lu Feng became extremely cautious. This time, he planned to study it thoroughly before refining it. It didn't take long for Lu Feng to fully enter the zone. He waved his arm and countless divine items danced in the air. Lu Feng casually picked up 2 of the divine items and began to concoct the pill-inducing pill. Lu Feng had already been able to refine the pill drawing back when he was only a god master. Now that he had become a sage master, it was extremely easy. In an instant, the godly items were completely refined. After extracting the essence of the godly items, Lu Feng started refining quickly. Simple and easy, extremely simple and easy. Just like that, the 7th grade pill drawing pill was successfully refined. At this time, Lu Feng finally began to calm down. The reason for my failure last time was the use of the pill formula. My spiritual power couldn't withstand the refinement of a grade 8 pinnacle legendary pill at the level of my spiritual power. That's why I failed. I failed completely. It's different this time, because I've already become a Saint Master. My mental strength is already high enough. Since that was enough, it was time to begin. Lu Feng didn't waste any more time. After confirming that he could refine it, he finally started to refine it. In an instant, the essences of the 2 divine items were extracted. These were 8th grade divine items. Ordinary alchemists would need a lot of time to extract the essences from them. However, Lu Feng completed it in an extremely short period of time. The current him was already very powerful. However, this was still not enough. Because he was fast, it didn't mean that he could succeed. Whether or not one could become a Pill Dao Sacred Master depended on whether or not one could succeed. Therefore, Lu Feng wasn't happy at all. He started refining even more seriously. After extracting the essence of the two divine items and fusing them with the spirit pill, Lu Feng finally began the final step of refining, the most crucial step of refining. Now, it's time for the most crucial step, Lu Feng exhaled softly. His expression was cautious. Back then, he had failed at this. This time, Lu Feng wouldn't allow such a situation to happen. Therefore, in the next moment, Lu Feng was extremely cautious. The fusion had begun, 10%, 20%. The speed of the fusion was really fast. It was much faster than when he had first refined it. However, Lu Feng knew that this wasn't enough. It was far from enough, because he didn't know if he could succeed. His gaze became even more cautious. This time, when the fusion rate reached 95%, Lu Feng even started to sweat a little. As a peak true immortal, he was actually sweating. This was undoubtedly inconceivable. From this, one could see how nervous Lu Feng was at the moment. Finally, when the fusion rate reached 99%, Lu Feng's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. It was this moment of nervousness that almost caused him to fail. However, at the last moment, he still relied on his extremely powerful strength to take complete control of everything. He took control of this almost failed outcome and completely reversed it. Lu Feng chuckled as he felt a strange vibration coming from his body. He really did smile. Looking at the dark clouds that had appeared in the void, Lu Feng was smiling. The appearance of these clouds meant that he had succeeded. He had really refined a pinnacle grade 8 legendary elixir. Undoubtedly, this was shocking. I have succeeded. Now, I am a Saint Alchemy Master. Saint Alchemy Master. Those who could refine grade 8 elixirs were Saint Alchemy Masters. This was the fundamental definition. Lu Feng, at such a young age, had actually become a Saint Alchemy Master. One had to know that in the entire primal universe, this was definitely shocking. With a gentle wave of his arm, he directly used the power of the calamity to swallow all the calamities and make them disappear. Only Lu Feng could do this. If it had been anyone else facing a calamity, they definitely wouldn't have been able to do anything. However, Lu Feng had completed it easily. This was the benefit of controlling the power of destruction. After completing all this, Lu Feng exhaled softly and began to summarize his previous experience. This time, my improvement is really great. Last time, I had to use countless amounts of spiritual power before I finally made it to the end. This time, however, I succeeded so easily. I can feel that the consumption of my spiritual power isn't large at all. Moreover, this consumption can be replenished in a very short period of time. This time, my improvement is really great. From a God Master to a Saint Alchemy Master, although it was only a leap of one level, the essential change was really too great. This made Lu Feng seem like a completely different person. Exhaling softly, Lu Feng continued to try, the elixir refined with the essence of 3 types of godly objects, success. 4 types, success, all the way until the elixir refined with 9 types of godly objects. Lu Feng succeeded on his first try. He only failed once when he was trying to fuse 10 types of godly object. However, it was only a single failure. After that, he succeeded all the times. Looking at the 10 elixirs quietly placed in front of him, Lu Feng was filled with a sense of accomplishment. The value of each of the 10 elixirs was different. Even the most ordinary elixir refined with the essence of 2 types of godly objects could be exchanged for at least 10 types of grade 8 godly objects here, Lu Feng believed. As for the grade 8 elixir refined with the essence of 10 types of godly objects, it was probably possible to exchange it for a few types of more precious grade 9 godly objects or even one of the most powerful grade 9 godly object. This was the horror of the elixir. Looking at the number of elixirs left in his independent space, Lu Feng hesitated for a moment before starting to refine like crazy. Now, he still had a certain amount of time, so he naturally had to seize the opportunity to refine. In this way, Lu Feng had used up all the godly objects he had stored in just a few days. At this moment, there were 50 elixirs quietly placed in front of Lu Feng. Among them, there were a total of 31 grade 8 elixirs refined with 2 types of godly object. As for the other grades, there was 1 elixir for each type. However, there were as many as 11 elixirs refined with 10 types of godly object. Looking at these elixirs, Lu Feng said with some regret, "Elixirs refined with the essence of 10 types of godly objects are really difficult to refine. With my current power, I actually failed twice. This shows how precious these elixirs are. It's only natural. Since there are no more godly objects to refine, I should go out. I think Lin Yu's inheritance should be coming to an end soon." Thinking of this, Lu Feng did not hesitate and directly walked out of the cultivation space. Lu Feng really did not lack elixirs. If he needed them, he could refine them at any time. Therefore, Lu Feng planned to exchange all the elixirs in his hands for the godly objects he needed. This way, he could continue refining. However, it was a little unrealistic for him to go out and exchange with people one by one. After all, the number of elixirs in his hands was really too terrifying. Of course, it was not to say that these dozens of elixirs were a huge number, but because these dozens of elixirs were all grade 8. In this case, the value was too great. Ordinary people would not be able to exchange for them at all. Lu Feng was a person who did not like trouble, so he naturally gave up on the idea of exchanging for elixirs. In this case, I'll exchange with Lin Langtian. Anyway, they probably won't cheat me. Lu Feng had a good impression of Lin Langtian, so he was willing to exchange for elixirs with Lin Langtian. After understanding this point, Lu Feng directly took out a communication crystal and contacted one of Lin Langtian's disciples. Soon, the monstrous disciple came to Lu Feng's position. Looking at Lu Feng, he slightly bowed respectfully and asked, "May I know why young Master Lu called me here?" At this moment, this monstrous disciple had completely become a staff member who specialized in serving. However, he was also willing. After all, this way, he would have the opportunity to interact with Lu Feng. Lu Feng smiled and said, "It's like this. I want to make a deal with your sect. I wonder if you can inform your sect's elders to discuss it?" Hearing this, a strange emotion flashed in the disciple's eyes. With Lu Feng's identity, it was destined that some ordinary things would not be in his eyes. Therefore, the deal he was talking about was bound to be very shocking. Moreover, even if it was really something ordinary, as long as it was Lu Feng's request, it would be considered a big deal. Therefore, this disciple did not dare to hesitate. He directly contacted an elder through the layers of reporting. Perhaps because of Lu Feng, this elder of glittering jewel heaven appeared very quickly. Looking at this elder in front of him, Lu Feng's eyes flashed with a slightly strange expression. This was because he discovered that this elder's realm was actually a real peak Hunyuan golden immortal. It could be said that in the original universe, this was the realm of a peak invincible almighty, an existence comparable to the great ancestor of the Lu family. Lu Feng clearly knew that the immortal kings of Lin Langtian were all grand elders. They guarded the land of inheritance and cultivated quietly, never caring about worldly affairs. Unless it was something important, they would not appear. As for golden immortals, they were the real elders of those sects, who were in charge of external affairs. Obviously, this peak Hunyuan golden immortal elder absolutely had an extremely important role and a prominent position in Lin Langtian. Looking at him, Lu Feng slightly bowed politely. When the elder saw Lu Feng, he smiled in a very friendly manner. "Young Master Lu, I'm the affairs elder of Lin Langtian. I heard that you have a deal to make with us. May I know what it is?" As the affairs elder, he naturally knew how important Lu Feng's existence was. If it wasn't for this reason, he wouldn't have come here to meet Lu Feng in person. Obviously, after seeing him, Lu Feng also knew that Lin Langtian valued him. The elder in charge of affairs was usually one of the most important elders in a sect, and the affairs elder of Lin Langtian was the most famous person in the entire Yellow Spring continent. Lu Feng did not expect that he would come in person to complete the deal with him. Looking at the affairs elder, Lu Feng smiled gently. Indeed, I have some elixirs, and I want to exchange them for some godly items. Lu Feng would not ask if they had enough godly items because it was a joke. As an emperor-level sect and the overlord of the Yellow Spring continent, how could Lin Langtian not have godly items? Therefore, after hearing Lu Feng's request, the elder smiled gently. Actually, you don't have to exchange them. If young Master Lu needs them, just say the word and we can provide them. Hearing this, Lu Feng was silent for a moment, then shook his head gently. Let's exchange them. I don't like to take advantage of others. Chapter 900. Seeing Lu Feng's insistence, the elder couldn't say anything else. He only nodded his head slightly. The next moment, Lu Feng took out the 50 elixirs from his personal space. When the elder saw that there were only 50 elixirs, he was still indifferent. However, when he saw the grades of the elixirs, his eyes suddenly flashed with a slightly shocked light. He looked at Lu Feng and asked in an uncertain tone, "Young Master Lu, do you want to exchange these elixirs for god items?" If it were just some 6th or 5th grade elixirs, he wouldn't care much. After all, Lin Langtian had a lot of such elixirs in storage. However, if it were 7th grade elixirs, he would care. After all, 7th grade elixirs were legendary elixirs. However, at this moment, Lu Feng took out real 8th grade elixirs. They were 8th grade elixirs at the peak of legendary level. It should be known that 9th grade elixirs were divine elixirs. In the original universe, divine elixirs were peerless. Except for the Lu family, which still had one, all the other divine elixirs had disappeared. Even here, divine elixirs were legendary existences. They were the cornerstone treasures of those peak sections. 8th grade elixirs were the best elixirs below 9th grade elixirs. They were elixirs that even immortal kings could use. Moreover, the elder also saw the grades of these elixirs. Those 8th grade elixirs that were made of 2 types of god items weren't considered too precious. However, compared to those 11 elixirs, they were really priceless treasures. These were elixirs made from the fusion of 10 types of god items. They belonged to the peak of elixirs. Except for divine elixirs, no other elixirs could be more precious than these elixirs. Therefore, when they saw these elixirs, even Lin Langtian couldn't treat them lightly and let them go easily. Seeing the elder's attitude, Lu Feng knew that he must be very concerned. With a smile at the corner of his mouth, Lu Feng asked, "How many god items can these elixirs be exchanged for?" The elder went silent. Even though there were only 50 pills, their value was really too great. Therefore, after a slight hesitation, the elder still gave Lu Feng a price. Hearing this price, Lu Feng nodded slightly. All in all, this was a very good price. Compared to the standard exchange rate, it was almost 50% more, and compared to the ordinary exchange rate, it was 30% higher. Of course, it was mainly because this pill was too precious, so the price was relatively high. However, Lu Feng also understood that this was partly due to his existence. He gently nodded his head. Then, let's do as elder said. Without any hesitation, Lu Feng handed the pills over to the elder in charge of affairs. After saying a few more things, he left the place. Lu Feng spent the next few days quietly. Not long after he handed over the elixirs, Linlang Heaven handed over the god items that belonged to him to Lu Feng. However, Lu Feng did not refine anything because he really did not want to refine anything for the time being. During this period, Lin Yu was still in the inheritance. According to what he knew, the longer the inheritance lasted, the greater the benefits he would obtain. Obviously, Lin Yu had really obtained an earth-shattering benefit this time. A few days later, Lu Feng came out again. This time, it was not because Lu Feng had refined elixirs again, but because he was going to receive some wealth. The Golden Immortal from the previous bet had already sent over the Golden Immortal. When Lu Feng saw him, the Golden Immortal took out all the god items that belonged to Lu Feng. The amount was so huge that it was shocking. The total value of these god items far exceeded the value of the god items that could be exchanged for 50 million pills of the 5th or 6th grade. If it was really calculated, it was almost a 30% increase. If it was just a few things, then not to mention 30%, even if it was doubled, it would not be a big deal. However, there were things worth hundreds of millions here. Not to mention 30%, even 10% of such things was a shocking number. Lu Feng looked at the god items and looked at the Golden Immortal strangely. Naturally, the Golden Immortal also understood the reason for Lu Feng's surprise. He smiled gently and explained. It's like this. If it's just the elixirs, it's really not easy for us to take them all out. Even if we take them out, I'm afraid it will cause our vitality to be greatly damaged. It just so happens that young Master Lu is open-minded and is willing to use god items instead, so we naturally have to be grateful. Lu Feng smiled gently. He knew that these words might be a little exaggerated, but his choice should have helped them a lot. Since they had already given it, Lu Feng did not want to refuse anything. He nodded gently and directly put all these god items into his exclusive space. Lu Feng had calculated that if he were to refine them, the value of the elixirs refined from these god items would definitely be 100 times more than 50 million. After all, his success rate was 100%, and he could almost refine them continuously. In terms of efficiency, others were far behind. Therefore, Lu Feng was really relaxed. Of course, for now, it was impossible for Lu Feng to refine them. After all, he really did not have so much time to refine them. Lu Feng planned to accumulate these god items. When he returned to the primal universe, he would enter the realm of time and slowly refine them. At that time, relying on these elixirs, he would be able to quickly improve the strength of the people around him. After parting with the Golden Immortal Elder, Lu Feng returned to his room again. However, this time, he did not come out after a few days. This was because he had received news that Lin Yu would appear in a few days. Lu Feng stood quietly in front of a terrifyingly huge and ancient door. He knew that in front of him was Lin Longtian's secret land of inheritance. After all, the secret land of inheritance of a sect was the most fundamental existence of the sect. It could be said that such a place was really special and very important. Beside Lu Feng, there were a few elders of Lin Langtian who belonged to the Lin family. They were also quietly waiting for Lin Yu's appearance. After Lin Yu returned, he was the second young master of Lin Langtian, the young master of the Lin family. And this time, he had experienced a shocking transformation. According to the calculation of time, the benefits that Lin Yu had obtained were really shocking. Therefore, this matter had alarmed many elders of the Lin family, and they all appeared one after another. Lin Yu has been cultivating inside for more than 10 days. Compared to his father, he has been cultivating inside for almost twice as long. And compared to Tianhui, he has 3 days more. Generally speaking, 7 to 8 days is enough to comprehend the true essence of the origin and the true essence of the origin of this world. And 10 days is enough to comprehend the true essence of the origin to a very deep level. When Lin Yu comes out, he will definitely be an emperor-level monster. A truly powerful one, perhaps even a peak emperor-level monster. This was undoubtedly very terrifying. After all, this was a complete transformation of a person. However, Lu Feng did not think much of it. This was because he knew that although Lin Yu had undergone a transformation with the help of these experiences, there was still a certain gap between this and his own breakthrough. But even so, it was still not bad. Soon, a crack appeared in the middle of the giant door. Lu Feng knew that Lin Yu was about to come out. As expected, when the door opened to its greatest extent, a figure slowly walked out from it. He stood quietly. Finally, when he walked out of the door and saw Lu Feng, he was shaken. In an instant, a powerful and terrifying punch was thrown, causing the entire space to tremble slightly. This kind of power was simply shocking and made people tremble. Lu Feng could feel that under such an attack, even a second-level golden immortal would be severely injured. This was Lin Yu's shocking attack. If it was in the past, Lu Feng would definitely choose to increase his strength to an extremely powerful level in order to resist such an attack. After all, such an attack was truly world-shaking. It was even more powerful than Tian Hui's most powerful attack. On it, there was an endless amount of world power wrapped around it. However, that was all in the past. That was all in the past. The current Lu Feng was no longer someone who could be compared to or imagined by anyone. In the face of such an attack, in the face of these invincible attacks, Lu Feng only smiled indifferently. Then, he released his World War body. World War body. That was a war body that had refined the world. It was really extreme. Moreover, the current Lu Feng's realm had reached the peak of the true immortal realm. His combat strength had skyrocketed to the 9th level. When he unleashed all of his strength, even if he faced a true peak golden immortal, he might even have a chance to fight. Naturally, this attack, which couldn't even be considered as an advanced golden immortal, was too ordinary in front of Lu Feng. Therefore, he just stretched out his arm and waved it gently. In the next moment this powerful attack was shattered. Lu Feng chuckled, looked at the extremely depressed Lin Yu in front of him, and said slowly, "It seems that you've made a lot of progress. It's really not bad. When you familiarize yourself with your current realm, the power of this attack will probably be improved." Lin Yu looked at Lu Feng and said gloomily, "What's the use of improving? You still can't even show your strength." Hearing this, Lu Feng just smiled and shook his head. "You're not bad now. I can feel that you should have really reached the peak of the Emperor realm. Although this peak is a little flashy, it's still the peak. But it's still the peak. And your realm is the same as mine. You're also a peak true immortal. It seems that these 10 days of inheritance have given you a lot of shocking benefits." Lin Yu nodded gently, but there was a slightly twisted expression in his eyes. "There are many benefits, but the process, it's really too painful. It's worse than death." A strange look flashed across Lu Feng's eyes. To be honest, he had experienced a lot of pain. When Lin Yu had awakened, he had also experienced a lot of pain. However, at this moment, he said that he would rather die than live. It could be seen that what he had experienced was really terrifying and unbearable to look back on. Alright. The past is the past. And these painful experiences will eventually help you on your future path. It will help you face the future better. You should rejoice." Lin Yu nodded his head gently. After a moment, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, "Wait a moment, let's prepare to set off. According to those old ancestors, only in the supreme holy grounds can I quickly improve myself and become a true pinnacle existence, solidifying everything." "I really can't wait," Lu Feng smiled and nodded. "All right, when you're ready we can set off at any time." Lin Yu also nodded. After bidding farewell to the smiling elders around him, he went to prepare some things. "Young Master Lu, follow me to the hall. When Lin Yu is ready, we can directly use the sex transportation formation to teleport to the sacred ground overseas." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.